The King's Avatar audiobook by Kevin Chapter 401, Temporary Guest Shameless. Ye Xiu tugged at the collar on Ye Xiu's jacket. In the end, he wasn't able to get anything out of it though and could only grind his teeth in anger. Chen Guo suddenly empathized with his hateful yet helpless expression because Ye Xiu frequently put her in this sort of situation as well. It looks like you weren't educated well enough. Ye Xiu's expression was the same as usual. Come back home with me. Ye Xiu gnashed his teeth. No way, Ye Xiu said. Ye Xiu's gaze was deep and profound as if he were about to pull off some powerful move. Chen Guo continued to watch, waiting for it to happen. However, the scene froze and stopped playing. Are you tired? Hurry up and let go. Show some respect to your elders. Ye Xiu said and made a slap. It seemed like Ye Xiu's hands weren't using much force and were slapped aside by Ye Xiu. Your overcoat seems pretty nice. Ye Xiu, with his soul jacket, looked at the overcoat that had been hanging on Ye Xiu's arm the entire time. No way, Ye Xiu resolutely hid the overcoat behind him. How selfish, Ye Xiu disdained. When are you going to give back the stuff you took from me? Ye Xiu said. Didn't I give you back your proof of identity? Ye Xiu suddenly choked. He had clearly forgotten about that part. Chen Guo raised her hand. Could you go into more details? The story behind the proof of identity. Oh. That time when I was going to join the Pro-Alliance, I obviously needed to use official documents as proof of my identity. However, even though I was old enough because I ran away from my family, I didn't have anything I could use as proof, Ye Xiu said. When this disgrace went back home to steal some proof, he wasn't able to steal the household register, so he took my proof of identity instead. Ye Xiu immediately followed. I was borrowing. Didn't I give it back to you? Ye Xiu said. You didn't tell me, so that's considered styling. I did tell you later. So it's like that, Chen Guo suddenly understood. This explained why Ye Xiu used Ye Xiu in the pro scene. Yeah, it's not like I could have used a fake proof, Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo began to sweat. Isn't using someone else's proof of identity and using a fake identity practically the same? They were twin brothers, so it was hard to tell the difference. Look how famous your name is now. Ye Xiu said to Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu coldly expressed his disdain. You used such a familiar name. You weren't worried that your family would find you? Chen Guo asked. If I had used Ye Xiu, then that might have been troublesome. But since I used a weak common street name like Ye Xiu, there was no need to worry, Ye Xiu said. Nonsense. The key point is that no one had imagined that you would run away from the family to play games. You're the weak one, Ye Xiu shouted. Oh. Then when you wanted to leave the family that time, what were you planning on doing? Ye Xiu asked. Ye Xiu tried hard to recall. Or maybe you had a dream you wanted to fulfill, Ye Xiu asked. My dream at that time was to leave the family, Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo nearly spat out her drink. She suddenly felt sorry for the parents of these two brothers. What type of family environment was this to make these two brothers want to leave the family? Chen Guo was very curious. That's the difference between me and you, Ye Xiu said. Ye Xiu expressed his disdain. Actually, I stopped hiding after a while. The family could easily force me to come back, but do you know why they never did so? Ye Xiu said. Why? Ye Xiu couldn't help but ask. Because my dream was the game and that was all, Ye Xiu said. Huh, Ye Xiu and Chen Guo asked. An esports career favors the young. I'm already considered old as a pro. Even if I persisted, I wouldn't be able to go on for much longer. This is why my dream will end at an early age. When that time comes, I'll naturally come back because that place will forever be my home. And at my age, there's still time for me to make a turn around at life. This is why my family left me alone, Ye Xiu said. And you're different. Your dream was only to leave the family. You're clearly even more rebellious than me. I at least knew what to do after I ran away. You wanted to run just for the sake of running away. If you ran away, would you think of coming back? From my view, you probably wouldn't, so it'd be best if you just stayed in the family like an obedient child. Leaving home. Did you really think that it would be fun? Ye Xiu said. Ye Xiu was stumped for words. He had even forgotten to express his usual disdain. Chen Guo was also surprised. Ye Xiu was actually a good brother. He was more sensible than his brother and saw the issue more thoroughly. So I won't be going back to celebrate New Year's. When the time comes, I'll come back on my own. After Chen Guo heard this, she suddenly wondered whether Ye Xiu was only saying all of that as an excuse to not go back home. As for Ye Xiu, after a short pause, he suddenly smiled. It won't be too late if I come back home tomorrow. He turned his head to look at Chen Guo. Boss, is it okay if I stay here for the night? Chen Guo nodded her head. You can even stay here for a few nights if you want. Can you not look for trouble? Ye Xiu immediately stopped her. Look how evil this guy looks. Ye Qiu's usual disdain rebooted. After a HMPH, he walked around the first floor of the internet cafe. Then he went to the stairs and asked, Do I go upstairs? Yes, I'll bring you there. Chen Guo went over the lead the way. Thank you. Ye Qiu nodded his head in thanks. As long as he wasn't talking to Ye Xiu, his words and actions showed propriety and politeness. It's not a problem. Chen Guo waved her hands, leading Ye Qiu upstairs. Ye Xiu didn't say anything. Seeing the two go up the stairs, he shook his head, lit a cigarette, and looked for a computer to log into Glory. We sleep here. Chen Guo opened the door to the living room and showed Ye Qiu around. It gives off a very comfortable feeling, Ye Qiu praised after entering the room. Doesn't it? Chen Guo replied happily. As the room's owner, of course, she would be happy about praise towards it. Where does Ye Xiu live? Ye Qiu asked. Chen Guo stared blankly. She looked somewhat embarrassed. Ye Xiu's living space really was quite embarrassing to talk about. As the owner who had arranged Ye Xiu's living space, it was quite awkward to talk about in front of Ye Xiu's relative. This way. Even though she felt embarrassed, Chen Guo didn't hide it. She opened the door to the storage room, but in the end she still added, It's only temporary. She wasn't lying. In the beginning, Chen Guo had only temporarily put Ye Xiu here. However, Ye Xiu didn't care and seemed pretty happy with his living space, so Chen Guo didn't feel like she needed to be in a rush towards this. Good, good, Ye Qiu replied. He had already seen everything there was to see in the storage room. His face didn't show any expression of being in disbelief like Chen Guo had imagined. He seemed quite happy and delighted. He even turned around and said earnestly, It's very good. Oh, Chen Guo was surprised, but she quickly realized why. The guy saw that his shameful brother was living in such a place, which was why he was so happy. Where will I be sleeping? Ye Qiu asked. Oh, you can come to my room. Chen Guo led Ye Qiu out and pointed to her own room. Then what about you? I'll sleep next door. The sis over there went back home to celebrate New Year's, so she won't be here for the new few days. Chen Guo was obviously talking about Tang Ru's room. You all live together. Ye Qiu looked at the 3 rooms. Yeah, there aren't any problems, are there? Living with my shameless brother, you must be careful, Ye Qiu said. No way. Chen Guo laughed. Even though Ye Xiu was sometimes a very infuriating person, he didn't have any faults in this area. He had been living with the 2 beauties for quite a while and nothing embarrassing had happened yet. But if that guy did anything embarrassing, he would probably resolve it in a shameless manner. Chen Guo suddenly thought, It wouldn't be convenient living in a lady's room. Can I sleep on this sofa? Ye Qiu pointed at the sofa in the living room. It's not a problem, Chen Guo said. Okay, then I'll sleep here. I'm saying that you sleeping in my room isn't a problem, Chen Guo explained. Don't worry, I'll sleep here, Ye Qiu said and expressed that he wasn't going to give in. Okay, then you can. Chen Guo didn't urge it and asked, Do you have any luggage? No. Okay, are you going to rest for a bit? Chen Guo asked. No need. I'm going to go down and see what that guy is up to. Ye Qiu turned around and pulled open the door. Like a gentleman, he gave priority to ladies and asked if Chen Guo was going to go out too. The 2 went downstairs back to the internet cafe and saw Ye Xiu diligently playing the game. You only know how to play, you're not going to tidy up all the stuff we bought, Chen Guo scolded. Exactly, he only knows how to play games, shameful. Ye Xiu stood by Chen Guo and acted almighty. Ye Xiu lifted his head helplessly. How do you want to do it? Chen Guo carelessly pointed around. Use everything that's useful. Ye Xiu said powerlessly. Do you know how much of the stuff you bought is useful? Chen Guo stared blankly. She had only bought whatever she liked. She didn't know what exactly she had bought and was already having trouble remembering. Shut your mouth, cut his salary, boss, Ye Xiu incited. How about you first figure out what you've bought? Ye Xiu said to Chen Guo. Even the useless stuff has to be tidied up, Chen Guo said, and then ran over to study what she had bought. Ye Xiu, go help. Ye Xiu said, why don't you go? I'm working. You're just playing a game, Ye Xiu mumbled to himself, but still went to help out. He wasn't the type of person to sit on the side and tell others to work without doing anything himself. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 402 Experience Life How Tiring. Ye Xiu stretched from his computer. The two people behind him who were tidying up the New Year goods glared at him in anger. How's it going? Did you finish cleaning up? Ye Xiu walked over with his two hands behind his back as if he were an inspector. Chen Guo lifted her hand and threw something at him. Ye Xiu was quite nimble, though. He raised his hand and caught it. He looked at it and saw that it was an apple. Go wash the fruit, Chen Guo gave Ye Xiu as task to do. But shortly afterwards she heard a crunch, and the apple she had thrown at Ye Xiu had a bite taken out of it. What? You hadn't washed it yet. Ye Xiu, who had taken a bite out of the apple, was as tranquil as ever. He spat out the apple he had taken a bite out of and tossed the eaten apple back at Chen Guo. Chen Guo didn't catch it. She let the apple go flying past her directly towards the entrance, where it fell and rolled on the ground. Come here and work, Chen Guo said expressionlessly. Ye Xiu toddled over and the three began organizing the items they had just bought. Even though it was nearly New Year's, the internet cafe had some business. It was just that the people who occasionally passed by and took a look around were scared by the scene they saw. Boss, are you preparing for a party? One person saw the various ornaments scattered around and asked in astonishment. Chen Guo was delighted. This misunderstanding was a type of acknowledgement as a result of their hard work. Come, come, come. You can sit anywhere. The candy, melon seeds, and peanuts are free. The customers who were lured in all received free candy and snacks as a gift. Not bad. The tidying up they had done the entire afternoon made the internet cafe look like there was a party going on. Chen Guo wiped some sweat from her forehead and said happily, come here, both of you get a red envelope. Chen Guo turned her head and gave the two brothers a reward. Thanks, boss. Ye Xiu replied without batting an eyelid. Ha ha, there's even a red envelope. Ye Xiu didn't decline. You're going back tomorrow, right? Then let's have a good dinner tonight, Chen Guo said. What do you mean by eat a good dinner? Ye Xiu had already lived in happy internet cafe for 2 months and had experienced Chen Guo's idea of a good dinner. It was usually just a few more dishes. Chen Guo stared at him. Let's see, it's still possible to order some. She took out her cell phone. This time, she was planning on having an actual good dinner. She was going to order a feast. Don't. Ye Xiu jumped out to stop her. There's no need to go through all that trouble. What do you two usually eat? We can just eat the same. Chen Guo was surprised when she heard this and then laughed. I understand. You want to experience what life here is like. However, you probably won't be able to get a realistic experience today. Chen Guo looked at the restaurant near them. That restaurant had good business relations with the internet cafe. She would order food from the small restaurant there. But today the restaurant owner had gone home to celebrate New Year's, so it wasn't open. Just a general feeling would be fine, Ye Xiu said. Okay, Chen Guo nodded her head. She took her purse and gave a few $100 bills to Ye Xiu. Go out and make a left. There will definitely be a few restaurants that haven't closed yet. Hurry. She pointed at the running Ye Xiu to Ye Xiu. Look, that's a part of our life. Ha ha ha, how wonderful. Ye Xiu laughed. How about you go to get the experience? Ye Xiu handed the money over to Ye Xiu. No need, I'll skip this part. Ye Xiu wasn't an idiot. Running errands wasn't anything he needed to experience. Ye Xiu held a cigarette in his mouth and left the building. Chen Guo called Ye Xiu over and set up the dining table they usually used in their day-to-day life. Then she pointed at the few customers. There isn't really anyone here today. Usually there are a lot of customers at this hour. Some of them will have food with them and the entire internet cafe will smell like delicious food. How unfortunate. We won't be experiencing it today, Ye Xiu sighed. If you ever get the chance, feel free to come again, Chen Guo said. Okay, I will definitely, Ye Xiu nodded his head. The two sat at the dining table and chatted. Ye Xiu told Chen Guo quite a few stories about Ye Xiu when he was young. Chen Guo really wanted to know about these so she could use them as revenge against Ye Xiu. When she thought carefully, ever since Ye Xiu had arrived at Happy Internet Cafe, she was often the one who suffered. Chen Guo didn't want to be that kind of story character. I'm back. Ye Xiu finally came back with 2 bags full of food. It smells amazing. Ye Xiu was already beginning to grow impatient. Oh, did we not eat this afternoon? Chen Guo recalled. If you're hungry, just eat more. Ye Xiu put down the food and smoked his cigarette first. Let's see what we have here. Ye Xiu took out the boxes of food. Oh, pretty good, pretty good. Ah, very good, very good. HM, not bad, not bad. How great, I like all of these. Ye Xiu looked at the food and nodded his head repeatedly. It's hard to tell, but you're actually a good brother, Chen Guo said. I've always been. It's just that young people don't know what they're doing, which is why such a misunderstanding came about. Ye Xiu said, young people. Chen Guo was somewhat speechless. They were twins. Even though one was a bit younger and the other was a bit older, in reality the difference was negligible. No alcohol. Ye Xiu opened up a box of food and realized that there was nothing to drink. That's right, you didn't buy any alcohol, Chen Guo asked. I don't drink alcohol, Ye Xiu said. Oh. Chen Guo was surprised the smoker, Ye Xiu, actually didn't drink alcohol. She hadn't expected this. Too much alcohol and your hands will shake, Ye Xiu said. Oh, got it, Chen Guo understood. A pro player had to have 2 steady hands. A minor micro mistake could have serious consequences. As a pro player, one had to be careful when drinking alcohol. You don't drink, but we do, Ye Xiu said. That's right, Chen Guo also thought. We do. You too. I don't have the hands. Ye Xiu was helpless. Oh, Chen Guo realized and then got up. I still have some alcohol upstairs. They've been up there for a while and haven't been touched. I'll go grab them for us to drink. Ye Xiu can help. Ye Xiu had only just sat down but had to get up again. The two went up while Chen Guo asked, what type of alcohol does your brother like? I haven't been home in 10 years. Ye Xiu reminded. He really didn't know what type of alcohol Ye Xiu liked. Go ask, Chen Guo said. As a result, Ye Xiu went back down. Not long after, Ye Xiu went up. Chen Guo was speechless. She called Ye Xiu over to personally pick the alcohol. Come, come, come. We'll just pretend that today is New Year's. Happy New Year, Happy New Year. After all, Chen Guo was the real host. She raised her cup and began calling the 2 brothers over. Ye Xiu said he didn't drink alcohol, but he still poured a bit into his cup. The 3 touched cups and drank. The internet cafe still had a few customers who saw the 3 celebrate the holiday as if there weren't anyone around them. There were numerous dishes. Chen Guo had grabbed quite a few drinks too, but this feast turned out to be extremely short-lived. No one had imagined that Ye Xiu would get drunk so quickly. He was completely drunk, and after a short moment his head suddenly dropped to the table. No matter how much they yelled and yelled, he wouldn't wake up. How weak! Ye Xiu shook his head. He can't drink. Chen Guo was also astonished. I really have no idea, Ye Xiu said. You guys don't even know if you're allergic to alcohol. Chen Guo began to worry. I'm not allergic. We have the same DNA, so I doubt he's allergic. Ye Xiu said. What do we do? Are you done eating? Ye Xiu asked. Not yet. Then keep eating, Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo took some food and suddenly remembered something. You aren't going to be like him and drop dead after drinking such a small amount, right? Impossible, Ye Xiu denied. You've never drunk any alcohol, so you don't actually know either, right? Chen Guo said. Ye Xiu didn't know how to reply. The same DNA, tusk, Chen Guo sighed. We've got different futures ahead of us, tusk. Ye Xiu also sighed. You're just saying that. He seems like he won't be someone with no future like you, Chen Guo said. Of course, I was just saying that, Ye Xiu said. Ye Qiu lied on his stomach for a good 2 hours. When he woke up, he was still in a daze. Are you okay? A bowl of vegetables was quickly given to him. Chen Guo looked at him. Oh, did something happen? Ye Qiu asked, confused. You got drunk, Chen Guo said. Really, for how long? Ye Qiu asked. 2 hours, Chen Guo said. Oh no, it's late now, isn't it? Ye Qiu said. He looked at the time and stared stupidly. When he recalled, he realized how quickly he had fallen drunk. It was certainly a length of time that would make others worry. Cough. Ye Qiu was too embarrassed to say anything. How are you now? Chen Guo asked. I'm fine, it's all good. Ye Qiu got up and wanted to prove himself. But as soon as he got up, he nearly fell. I'm so dizzy, Ye Qiu shouted. Chen Guo hastily supported him. If you're dizzy, go up and have a rest, Chen Guo said. No need, you don't need to help me. No one needs to help me. Ye Qiu insisted that he was fine. After swaying back and forth for 2 steps, his hand slapped the wall. I'll just use the wall, he paused. Chen Guo didn't know whether to laugh or cry and called Ye Xiu over. What a useless person. Ye Xiu was helpless. Do you still remember where the stairs are? Ye Xiu asked. I know, Ye Qiu said. Where? On the other side of the wall, Ye Qiu said. Get out of here. Ye Xiu extended his hands to support him. Chen Guo also helped. This time Ye Qiu didn't insist, and he was dragged up to the 2nd floor. Should we have him sleep at my place? Chen Guo said to Ye Xiu. No need, I'll sleep here. Ye Qiu was still awake, and he stubbornly pointed his finger. But his finger went astray, and he pointed at a table in the guest room. Throw him over to my place. Ye Xiu opened his own door and really did throw Ye Qiu into his room. He took off his shoes and put the blanket over him. It's quite nice having a brother, no? Seeing Ye Xiu help tidy up Ye Qiu, Chen Guo chuckled. It's not so bad, Ye Xiu said. Chapter 403, Happy New Year. After tidying Ye Qiu up appropriately, Ye Xiu left the room and closed the door. He saw Chen Guo standing outside and said to her, It wouldn't be too good if we're all up here and no one's down there, no? Right. Chen Guo thought of this problem and immediately headed downstairs. Ye Xiu went back to the 1st floor soon after as well and saw Chen Guo quietly sitting at the front desk. There clearly hadn't been any problems in those short few minutes they had been gone. The dishes on the dining table had already been cleaned up. It was just that, because Ye Qiu had been lying on the table, they weren't able to pack away the dining table. The barely touched alcohol was also sitting on the table. Ye Xiu picked up the bottles and shook them in front of Chen Guo. Where do I put the alcohol? Give it here. Chen Guo extended her hands. Ye Xiu walked forward and handed them over. Chen Guo followed. The cups too. You still want to drink more? Ye Xiu asked. It's not like I have anything else to do. Do you want to try a bit? Let's see if you're as weak as your brother, Chen Guo asked. There's no need to test it out for me to know, Ye Xiu said, but he still grabbed a bottle and poured out 2 cups. Since we're celebrating, it's fine if I drink a little, Ye Xiu said. As long as you don't drink often, it won't affect your hands, Chen Guo said. Ye Xiu finished pouring out 2 cups of wine and handed one over to Chen Guo. Chen Guo took it and swirled it around like she was playing with a toy. It really is quite nice having a brother, Chen Guo suddenly lamented. Even if you often get into arguments with him, it looks like both of you are having fun. Yeah, Ye Xiu quietly replied. He knew that Chen Guo wasn't lecturing him in any way. She was probably feeling a bit of sentiment towards her own life. After having been in happy internet cafe for 2 months, Even though Ye Xiu hadn't personally heard about Chen Guo's circumstances from her personally, Ye Xiu had good understanding from listening to others. Chen Guo had lived by herself for many years and probably yearned for this type of family love from the bottom of her heart. Unfortunately, this type of family love couldn't be replaced. Ye Xiu didn't know what to say to comfort her, so he just quietly listened. Whenever Chen Guo took a drink, he would also take a sip. The few customers in the internet cafe had finally all left. Today, not a single one wanted to stay overnight. After sending the last customer off, Chen Guo stood outside of Happy Internet Cafe for a good while. She let out a long strand of white air, turned around, went back in, and locked the doors. "We'll be closed today." As she spoke, she turned off the majority of the lights. The only spot with the lights left on were where they usually sat to play on the computers. Ye Xiu stood up from the front desk. His body swayed a little and looked at the computer over there. He stretched. "It's been a long day. I'm a bit tired, so I'll probably go to sleep a bit earlier today." As he spoke, he headed towards the stairs. Chen Guo was surprised. She took a glance at the front desk and saw that there was an empty wine cup where Ye Xiu had just left from. A sudden realization came to her. So he really is bad with alcohol too. Chen Guo laughed quietly. Ye Xiu had probably gotten drunk too. It was just that he was a bit better at controlling himself and didn't get completely drunk like his younger brother. Tonight, Chen Guo drank the most, yet she was doing the best. It was quite late already. Seeing Ye Xiu leave, Chen Guo closed off all the lights and went upstairs as well. "Do you want to sleep in my room?" When Chen Guo went up, Ye Xiu had just gotten into the room. "No need, I'll just sleep here." Ye Xiu was clearly doing better than Ye Xiu. He could at least point to the sofa properly. "No, you should go to my room. I'll go to little Tang's room," Chen Guo said. "I'll leave a bunch of ash on your bed," Ye Xiu said. "Just try and leave a bit." Chen Guo glared. "That's why I'll sleep here," Ye Xiu said, and laid down on the sofa. "If you can lend me something to cover myself though, that'd be great." "Hold on." Chen Guo went into her room, took out something and threw it at Ye Xiu. "See you tomorrow." Ye Xiu covered himself and called out to Chen Guo. "See you tomorrow." Chen Guo didn't say anything more and went to her room to sleep. Even though she hadn't gotten drunk, the alcohol still had some effect. Chen Guo slept well that night. When she woke up, it was already bright outside. She got up and looked outside. It was bright, sunny, cold winter day. Chen Guo put on her clothes and opened up the door to look. There was already no one on the sofa. The door of the storage room was still closed shut though. "Did he get up and go play games?" Chen Guo muttered and washed her face, rinsed her mouth. After coming downstairs, she saw that the dining table had been set up. There was some stuff on top. Someone was sitting next to it and sipping some milk. "Morning." Seeing Chen Guo, the person immediately waved his hands to greet her. "Oh, you're the one that got up." Chen Guo recognized him as Ye Xiu. The method to distinguish them was very simple. Ye Xiu and Ye Xiu wore different clothing. Yes, that guy is still sleeping. I threw him over there. I went out and took a stroll. I bought some stuff back. Do you usually eat this sort of food for breakfast?" Ye Xiu said. "Oh, we usually buy some food from the little stalls around here. They might not be open because of the holiday today though," Chen Guo said and walked over. She saw the food and drink on the table. They had clearly been purchased from the supermarket. "So it's like that. What are you going to eat? You can choose whatever you'd like," Ye Xiu said. "Okay." Chen Guo nodded her head. Ye Xiu had finished drinking his milk and went to the computer Ye Xiu usually used. "That guy usually plays games here every day?" Ye Xiu asked. "He plays games every day, but it's not always over there," Chen Guo said. "How do you put up with a guy who plays games all day?" Ye Xiu shook his head. "You don't play Glory?" Chen Guo asked. "I don't." Ye Xiu shook his head. "Is it because you don't like to play or because he's playing so you won't play?" Chen Guo asked with a laugh. "I really have no interest in it," Ye Xiu said as he sat down. Before turning on the computer, he asked Chen Guo for permission. "Can I? I have to turn on the server computer first." Chen Guo said and went to turn on the server computer. It's all good to go now. Thank you, Ye Xiu replied. Chen Guo saw Ye Xiu quickly put on his headphones. She really wanted to see what Ye Xiu, who didn't play games, would do on the computer when she suddenly heard a knock from outside on the roller shutter. Even though Ye Xiu had gone outside before, when he returned, he closed all the doors like they had been before. There are still customers today, Chen Guo questioned. She opened up the door and pressed on the button to open the roller shutter. With a whoosh, the roller shutter rolled up. Happy New Year! Chen Guo heard someone yell excitedly outside of the door. At the same time, there was a bang, and colored paper flew out everywhere all over her face. Someone had used a party popper towards her. Chen Guo jumped up in fright, but in any case it had been done in celebration, so she couldn't get angry, especially when Chen Guo saw who it was standing outside. She even felt very humbled. Outside standing was Sima Cheng. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Sima Cheng saw that the person she had party popped was Chen Guo and felt very embarrassed. Seeing Chen Guo covered in colorful paper from head to toe, she hurried over to help clean it up. It's nothing, it's nothing, it's nothing. Chen Guo was too excited seeing her idol right in front of her. How could she care about all of that? Come in, come in, come in. Chen Guo hastily welcomed her. I'm so sorry. I thought Ye Xiu was pulling an all-nighter, so I thought he would be the one to open the door. Sima Cheng explained. Don't worry, don't worry, Chen Guo immediately said. To have her idol apologizing repeatedly in front of her was too humbling. She hated how she couldn't just throw out her heart to let Sima Cheng know that she really didn't mind at all. You can sit anywhere you'd like. In front of her idol, Chen Guo's mind was all over the place. She wasn't sure what she should do. Should she bring some fruit over, or should she go get some candy, or should she grab something for her to drink? Should she give her a red envelope? With her mind in a daze, Chen Guo completely missed Sima Cheng asking her where Ye Xiu was. By the time she turned around and looked, Sima Cheng was already tiptoeing her way to behind Ye Xiu and quietly took something out of her pocket. It was another party popper. Seeing Chen Guo look towards her, she put up a finger to her mouth to make a SHH face. Ah, that. Chen Guo only had time to say 2 words when Sima Cheng cheered with a loud Happy New Year and popped the party popper with a bang. At the same time, colored paper flew out covering Ye Xiu. What the heck? Ye Xiu shouted in fright and leaped up out of his seat. Amidst the colorful paper, the two looked at each other. You're not Ye Xiu. Are you Ye Xiu? Sima Cheng said. Who are you? Ye Xiu asked. Chen Guo was astonished. Ye Xiu actually didn't know who Sima Cheng was, and Sima Cheng could instantly recognize that Ye Xiu wasn't Ye Xiu. It looked like her relationship with Ye Xiu was quite close. I'm Sima Cheng, Sima Cheng said. Sima Cheng. You don't recognize me anymore, Sima Cheng said. This time she didn't hastily make an apology. Instead, she took the already used party popper in her hands and said in an upset voice, I made a mistake again. I don't have any more. None of what? Ye Xiu asked curiously. Sima Cheng raised her party popper up. If you don't have any left, you can just buy more, Ye Xiu said. I made these myself, Sima Cheng said. I thought so. I've never seen such a filled party popper before, Ye Xiu said. She and Chen Guo were covered from head to toe with colorful paper. That wasn't all either. The colorful paper that had flew out hadn't all fell down yet. There were still some floating in the air. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 404 Chapter 404 Ye Xiu leaves. When Chen Guo came over, she and Ye Xiu were covered in colorful paper. They looked at each other but didn't know what to say. Chen Guo felt her heart pain seeing Sima Cheng upset and went up to take a look at the party popper in her hands. You can't use it again. No, once it's used once it breaks, Sima Cheng said. Let me see. Ye Xiu extended his hands out. Sima Cheng handed it over. Ye Xiu received it and studied it carefully. Soon after, he also let out a sigh. Yes, it's broken. It can't be used. Do you understand? Chen Guo scrambled over. She wasn't happy with Ye Xiu giving it a death sentence so quickly. "Look over here. This place." Ye Xiu pointed it out to Chen Guo. "The reason she's able to shoot out so much colorful paper is because it has a fairly strong explosive power, which is why it breaks after one use. Even if it wasn't broken, this place can't be closed up, so it won't be able to shoot out again." Chen Guo clearly wasn't prepared for Ye Qiu's logical explanation. After thinking about it for a few seconds, she couldn't find the crucial spot Ye Qiu was talking about. She looked at the popper again. "Can't you find a makeshift fix, like manually popping it?" Ye Qiu shook his head. For a moment Chen Guo didn't know what to say. Taking the already broken party popper, she didn't know whether she should hand it back to Sima Cheng or not. Sima Cheng herself had moved past her regret and took the broken party popper from Chen Guo. She examined it for a few moments and then put it back in her pocket. "Where's Ye Xiu?" Sima Cheng asked. "He's not up yet." Chen Guo replied. "Did he just go to sleep?" "No, he slept last night. He had drunk a bit of alcohol yesterday," Chen Guo said. "Alcohol?" Sima Cheng smiled. "He's really no good with that." "That's certainly true," Chen Guo also smiled. Really, he got drunk too?" Ye Qiu immediately asked after hearing this. "Not really. He knew when it was time for him to stop drinking, unlike a certain someone," Chen Guo said. Ye Qiu still remembered his heroic attempt last night to pretend like nothing had happened. He coughed embarrassingly and then went back to his computer. At this moment, footsteps could be heard from above, and Ye Xiu's figure quickly appeared at the top of the stairs. Seeing Sima Cheng standing below, he waved his hands. "You've come over." "Yeah." Sima Cheng nodded her head with her hands behind her back. "Did that guy leave yet?" Ye Xiu asked. Chen Guo moved to the side, letting Ye Xiu see that guy she was blocking. "I'm about to." Ye Qiu had already turned off the computer and then stood up. "You're going back already? Why don't you stay and eat lunch with us?" Chen Guo said. "I have to go." Ye Qiu said helplessly, "If I don't, I won't be able to make it in time for dinner. I'm not like this unfilial person." "Yes, you can even take my portion of the meal. Go home and be an obedient child," Ye Xiu said. "HMPH. My dream hasn't been achieved yet. Hurry up and come back home," Ye Qiu said. Chen Guo had black lines coming down her face. Was this brother still thinking about running away from the family? Had he come here to call Ye Xiu back as the representative for the Ye family, or had he wanted to call his brother back so he could run away? "I'm going now." Ye Qiu leaving clearly hadn't been a decision he made on the moment. His overcoat and clothing had been brought down earlier. After tidying his clothes, he politely gave his farewells to the two ladies. He stopped them from sending him off and left by himself. When he got to the entrance, he turned around to wave at Ye Xiu. "I'm leaving, disgraceful brother." When did the event start? Ye Xiu had already immersed himself into the game. Seeing the face that was completely the same as his with a never-before-seen look of concentration, Ye Qiu was originally going to say something, but his lips only moved slightly. In the end, he didn't say anything and waved a final goodbye to the ladies and left. He left. Chen Guo said to Ye Xiu. "I know, I heard," Ye Xiu said. "Then why didn't you respond?" "I did, my heart almost broke," Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo was speechless. "The event starts in the afternoon, it's still early. Bring me to where you live and let me take a look," Sima Cheng said. "Oh sure." Ye Xiu got up. "Ah," Chen Guo was startled. It was obvious how close Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng were, yet she had given Ye Xiu such a living space. What if Sima Cheng saw it and wasn't happy with it? Chen Guo didn't want to give her idol any discomfort, but at this moment she couldn't do anything. Ye Xiu led Sima Cheng upstairs. Chen Guo was conflicted on whether she should follow them. When Ye Xiu pulled open the door to the small storage room and presented it to Sima Cheng, Chen Guo had even closed her eyes. "Ah, not bad. It really fits you." Chen Guo heard Sima Cheng say this, and from the sounds of it, it didn't seem like she was mocking him. Chen Guo glanced at Sima Cheng and saw that she wasn't at all displeased. Right now, she was below the small window and testing her height to see if she could see outside. "Do you want to climb up?" Ye Xiu commented on her movements. What can you see from out the window? Suma Cheng asked. I can't see anything either, Ye Xiu said. Look, what's there to see? I'm trying to see if I can see my window, Suma Cheng said. Oh, let me think. Ye Xiu didn't do it half-heartedly. From his experience and skill in game, he was quite adept with angles and judging distance. He had lived in excellent era for several years too, so he was very familiar with it. Recalling where Suma Cheng's room was, he nodded his head. I should be able to see it. Really? Let me see, Suma Cheng said. How are you going to see it? Ye Xiu was helpless. Suma Cheng clearly wasn't tall enough. Help me up, Suma Cheng said. You're not talking to me, right, boss? It's time for you to show your enthusiasm as a fan, Ye Xiu said. Black lines ran down Chen Guo's face. No matter how crazy of a fan she wasn't that crazy. I'll go get a stool. Chen Guo could do this though. Suma Cheng was finally able to look outside using the stool to stand on. I really can see it, Suma Cheng was satisfied. Really? Really? Where? I want to look. Chen Guo chased after her star and went up. Boss, isn't that too much? Ye Xiu said. What? You can see it from your window, why waste your efforts to use this one? Ye Xiu said. Really, point it out to me. As a result, the three went to Chen Guo's room. At the window side, Ye Xiu counted up and down, left to right, telling Chen Guo the position. It feels so close, Suma Cheng said. Yeah, Chen Guo exclaimed. We can even say hi to each other in the morning, Suma Cheng said. Of course, Chen Guo continued to be excited. Let's try it next time, Suma Cheng said. Okay, Chen Guo said. Have my phone number so we can get in touch easier. Suma Cheng took out her cell phone. Chen Guo was already going dizzy from happiness. She obviously knew that Ye Xiu had ways to contact Suma Cheng, but she felt too embarrassed to just ask for it. Now that Suma Cheng did it on her own, she obviously wouldn't refuse it. Okay, let's go down now. There's no one downstairs. Ye Xiu reminded. I'm a bit tired. Let me go to your place to sleep for a bit, Suma Cheng said after coming out of Chen Guo's room. Sleepy, Ye Xiu said in confusion. Happy New Year, Suma Cheng suddenly cheered and her two hands stretched out from behind her back. Ye Xiu immediately retreated back to dodge. Chen Guo was astonished as well. She thought Suma Cheng was prepared, but when she looked again, Suma Cheng was still holding onto the already broken popper, and this time no colorful paper flew out. Ha, it's already broken. Suma Cheng gave the party popper for Ye Xiu to see. Even though it was broken, she still successfully surprised him. There may not have been any colorful paper that shot out, but she was still satisfied with the results. Oh, Ye Xiu took it and looked. Another one that you made yourself. Yeah. You were working all night on this, which is why you're sleepy. I didn't really sleep much, Suma Cheng said. Then go sleep. Ye Xiu pushed Suma Cheng over to his storage room. Do you want to sleep in my room? Chen Guo blurted out. She stared blankly shortly after because she realized that she had already said these words 3 times since yesterday. She had been politely rejected the first 2 times, and this time she had the same premonition. No need. It'll just be a quick nap. Suma Cheng politely refused and pounced onto Ye Xiu's bed. Call me over when the event starts, Suma Cheng said. You can sleep longer, give me your account card, Ye Xiu said. You'll play on 2 accounts, Suma Cheng asked. No need, let my boss help you play, Ye Xiu said. Yes, let me. I play the launcher too, Chen Guo said. Ye Xiu's suggestion had hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Suma Cheng could sleep more and Chen Guo could happily play on Suma Cheng's account. You can come down when you've got enough sleep, Ye Xiu said. Okay, Suma Cheng nodded her head. Ye Xiu and Chen Guo left the room and went downstairs. The internet cafe was decorated the same as yesterday. The emptiness couldn't be covered up though, but Chen Guo couldn't care about this right now. She went down and hung up a closed sign on the door. Then she took Suma Cheng's cleansing mist account and ran over to the game impatiently. She was even more energetic than Ye Xiu. Guess who I am? Ye Xiu saw that as soon as Chen Guo went online, she immediately sent a message. Guo, the other side replied. Chen Guo had sent her message to Tang Ru's soft mist. Even though this girl wasn't in the internet cafe, it seemed like she still had glory in her heart. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 405 Chapter 405. A peaceful spring festival event, Ye Xiu soon logged into the game. He wasted yesterday sleeping and didn't use today's dungeon runs yet. Su Macheng's cleansing mist was the same, as was Tang Ru. Both of them were online and hadn't run the dungeons. Horse Shooter and Thousand Creations weren't online. The level gap still existed between the players who participated in the Christmas event with Ye Xiu and the others. This gap eliminated any open teams. The only hope for a full 5-person team was to join the players of the other guilds. However, it was New Year's Eve today, and each major guild was going with their own agenda. Ye Xiu glanced down at his friends' list. A few of the guild leaders of the 10th server were online. He sent messages to every one of them, asking if they had any open teams. In the end, none had any available. Some already used up the dungeon runs while the others didn't have space for 3. This wasn't a big problem for Ye Xiu. If there was no team open, then he would manage. With his level of skill, 3 people was more than enough to challenge a 5-person dungeon. The only downside was the efficiency, which wasn't going to be very satisfactory. On the other hand, considering this was a special occasion, he didn't need to hold such high expectations. However, this was the first time Chen Guo had ever participated in work with such high difficulty. In addition, she was using Su Macheng's account. If she accidentally killed her idol's character, she would surely die of guilt. As a result, Chen Guo was clearly way too nervous. Her maneuvers were rigid, her mind was often half a beat too slow, and she made countless careless mistakes. She only survived because of Ye Xiu, who had to save her frequently. It was fortunate that Chen Guo sat right next to Ye Xiu. Through the latter's constant hints and reminders, she soon recovered. She quickly realized that this was much easier than she had expected. Chen Guo was no amateur, so she quickly figured out that this dungeon raid was easy because Ye Xiu took care of most of the difficulty. The rest was split between Tang Ru, who took the majority, and Chen Guo. Chen Guo obviously wouldn't be dealing with anything too hard. Nevertheless, 3 people running through a 5-person dungeon was pretty slow. After 3 times, it was already noon. The special event for New Year started on 12:00 p.m. sharp. Tang Ru had already left to fix lunch. Ye Xiu and Chen Guo also called for delivery. "What are going to have tonight?" Ye Xiu asked Chen Guo while munching on the delivered food. After all, today was New Year's Eve. The dinner on New Year's Eve, according to Chinese traditions, was one of the most important meals throughout the year. Fast food would be a miserable excuse for such an important feast. "Don't worry, I've got it covered," Chen Guo replied. "Oh," Ye Xiu was curious. "I made a reservation at a restaurant." Chen Guo spoke. "Will it be okay? I mean, if there are any Glory fans, especially ones like you," Ye Xiu insisted. Chen Guo glared angrily at Ye Xiu for a while, then added, "I reserved a room, it should be fine." "Not bad." Ye Xiu approved Chen Guo's decision. Chen Guo rolled her eyes and said nothing. Ye Xiu had no chance of being discovered by fans. It was Su Macheng who was the problem. On the other hand, Su Macheng was Chen Guo's idol. How could Chen Guo not have considered everything? "The event is about to start. What do you think of it?" Chen Guo asked. "From the information released, there are no shortcuts. We can only rely on our luck and skills this time," Ye Xiu explained. "So there is no chance of repeating what happened last Christmas," Chen Guo continued. "Nope, that would be impossible." Ye Xiu shook his head confidently. "What level do you think you'll be by the end of this event? Do you think I'm some sort of god?" "I can only tell you things after doing the quests for some time. How can I know all of the things just by looking at the quest chain?" Ye Xiu complained. "After level 50, you'll be starting the Heavenly Domain Challenge, right?" Chen Guo checked. "I have to, otherwise I can't continue to level up," Ye Xiu replied. Will it be hard? Chen Guo inquired. Nope, it'll just be like killing time. Ye Xiu responded. Ye Xiu had said a while ago that he would be doing the Heavenly Domain Challenge once he reached level 50. Chen Guo thought he was crazy then, but she found it easier to accept his casual reply now. For a top-tier god like Ye Xiu, killing time was a fitting description for such a task. The Heavenly Domain Challenge consisted of two parts. One part had to do with the arena. It required that the player achieve a certain number of victories. However, there was another criteria. The opponent's level cannot be lower than one's own level. Ye Xiu was having troubles with that requirement. His level was too high. He was in the group of players with the highest level in the 10th server. Even when that group reached level 50, there still wouldn't be a lot of people that matched Ye Xiu's criteria. In addition, these people were all the elites of the top guilds. They had old accounts in other servers. The job of these players was to level up their 10th server account as fast as possible to fight for the dungeon records. Arena was just something they did to waste time, so they rarely went. As a result, Ye Xiu was in a bind. It's just like how the best craftsman can't make anything without the basic materials. There was no doubt that he can obtain that many victories, but the problem was that there were no opponents to beat. What could Ye Xiu do? Challenge someone over and over again? Unfortunately, the system of glory had already thought of that. There was another rule. After 10 victories against the same opponent, any more victories against the same person wouldn't count. The officials always treated the Heavenly Domain very seriously. The goal of the Heavenly Domain Challenge was to test the true skills of the player. Thus, the Heavenly Domain Challenge tried its best to avoid any loopholes. The only way to cheat was like Chen Guo, who asked someone else to do it for her. The officials of the game couldn't do anything about that. The other part of the Heavenly Domain Challenge were the PvE quests. Even these quests tested for the player's skills. For example, some missions asked the player to collect a certain number of monster drops. These items would not drop unless a certain criteria was met, such as a certain number of combos. No one could rely on luck to fulfill the Heavenly Domain Challenge. Ye Xiu had no problem with these quests that tested for skill. Ye Xiu's problem was killing the monsters. The Heavenly Domain Challenge always matched the level cap. Ye Xiu's Lord Grim was only level 50, while the mission's level was 70. This disparity would cause a huge level suppression on him, making every battle extremely difficult for Ye Xiu. He wasn't worried about combos, though, because each battle demanded a tremendous amount of time, which would be more than enough for him to fulfill all the combo requirements. The only thing he had to worry about was endurance. Endurance didn't just indicate life and mana, but also Ye Xiu himself. He needed to be highly focused the entire time to ensure no mistake was made. Even if Ye Xiu could accomplish all of that, he could not change the fact that the battles were going to be extremely long. This was the reason why Ye Xiu said this was going to be a time killer. I hope everything will go smoothly. Chen Guo shuddered at the thought. On the other hand, Ye Xiu seemed to be thinking of something else. At 12 o'clock, the special event for New Year started. Ye Xiu, Chen Guo, and Tang Ru all returned to the game. Ye Xiu checked his friends' list again. Most people were on break for the holiday. Much to Ye Xiu's satisfaction, Steamed Bun Invasion stayed online constantly. After the last Christmas event, Steamed Bun Invasion had been left behind. Ye Xiu had always found that to be a pity. Ye Xiu even asked for Steamed Bun Invasion's phone number to avoid such a tragedy again. Steamed Bun Invasion had logged in early today for this event, so he wasn't late for it. After completing the quest chain several times, Ye Xiu got a pretty good idea of the event. This year's New Year event was just as good as the past years. The speed of leveling up for this event was way better than usual. Plus, there was a super high chance of getting all sorts of goodies. Much to Ye Xiu's disappointment, there was no loophole to take advantage of. This event definitely gave him no chance to get more stuff than others. When the event first started, all the players participated excitedly. There weren't a lot of people on his friends list, but Ye Xiu still felt that the maps were overcrowded when he completed the missions. The global chat was changing constantly, boasting of rewards good enough to make any player who missed the event regret. The clearest proof of this was Chen Guo. Chen Guo was extremely focused on playing her idol's character, but after seeing all the fancy rewards, she couldn't help but want to abandon Sima Cheng's account and log in on her own account. Chen Guo didn't have to struggle over this decision for long. An hour after the event started, Sima Cheng woke up and took over. Chen Guo immediately logged into her own account and started doing the quests in the heavenly domain. How do you do the quest? Sima Cheng asked right after she got her own account back. She hadn't read the description for this special event. Under Ye Xiu's guidance, Sima Cheng soon finished the first round of missions. There were a few battles here and there, but they posed no threat for a pro player. It's not very interesting, Sima Cheng commented after the first round. Yep, the rewards aren't bad though, Ye Xiu answered. It's the same every year. Sima Cheng sighed and then started her second round of quests. Both Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng were experienced pro players, so no reward would surprise them too much. Chen Guo, sitting next to the two, was feeling the pressure though. There were several times where she wanted to cry out in joy for the rare items the two won, but after seeing no reaction from the winners, Chen Guo felt embarrassed for overreacting. Actually, the best thing about New Year's event is that there is no conflict. Ye Xiu suddenly spoke. True, it's a holiday after all. No one wants to have a bad time during the holidays. For the Spring Festival, peace is very important. Sima Cheng agreed. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 406 Chapter 406. New Year's Eve things with rankings always aroused competition. It was the reason why the Christmas event turned into a huge war between the top guilds. However, the Spring Festival wasn't like this. Players quietly did their quests, and the system quietly gave out the rewards. Players could form parties with each other to do quests, but it wasn't necessary. You could easily complete the entire quest chain playing alone. It could be said that the Spring Festival event had temporarily turned Glory into a single-player game. Everyone could play on their own without any interaction. Of course, seeing others obtain beautiful rewards would make anyone envious, but there was nothing that could be done about that. The event quests were right there, though. If they were envious, then they just had to complete them. The system gave out the rewards for the event fairly so that more players would participate in the event. But no matter how great the rewards were, the later it got today, the fewer the number of players there would be online. Just before 6, Ye Xiu took one last glance at his friends' list before he logged off. All of the names were gray. Not a single one of them was online, even those enthusiastic fans from the top guilds. Soon afterwards, 3 people headed over to the restaurant Chen Guo had reserved and went there to eat dinner. Chen Guo suddenly felt like she was in a dream seeing the 2 guests in front of her. If this was in the past, she would never have thought that she would ever get the chance to eat with the 2 of them, let alone eating with them at New Year's Eve. Chen Guo was obviously very excited, but she also knew that Ye Xiu and his brother were both a mess with alcohol. As a result, even though she poured alcohol into Ye Xiu's cup, it was only a little bit. She didn't force him to drink either. Ye Xiu spent most of his time drinking other drinks to dilute it. The 3 chatted about Glory. Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng were 2 top-tier pros, who knew how much gossip and secrets they knew about in the pro circle. Just from the 2 gossiping, Chen Guo had her eyes open to a new world. Though for gossip, the top-tier god Ye Xiu couldn't compare to Sima Cheng. Sima Cheng deserved to be called a girl. Her ability to gossip was far better than Ye Xiu's. That night, none of them talked about any serious topics. The atmosphere was even more harmonious than when doing the spring festival quests. At the end of the dinner, the two were clearly drunk. They repeated the same piece of gossip 5 times and were still laughing at what they were saying. Ye Xiu had drunk very little alcohol, so he was wide awake. Seeing that the other two were having fun, he didn't stop them and just quietly sat there on the side. "Ah, there's no more alcohol." Suma Cheng picked up the alcohol bottle and shook it around for a while. She was only able to shake out 2 more drops. Then she peeked through the bottle opening to look at the back of the bottle and then raised it up announcing her findings. "Then, shall we go back?" Ye Xiu said. "Okay." Suma Cheng immediately stood up. Chen Guo had wanted to say they could get more alcohol, but seeing that her idol wanted to leave, she swallowed what she was about to say and shakily stood up using the table as a support. "Careful." Ye Xiu saw that the 2 girls were unsteady and didn't know which one he should help. In the end, the 2 girls supported each other and swayed left and right towards the exit. Ye Xiu followed behind them, ready to rescue them at any time. They paid the bill and then left. It wasn't early and it was still quite cold at night, but the 2 drunk girls couldn't feel it. After leaving the restaurant, they didn't hurry to get back home and walked along the road. The 2 laughed and giggled the entire way back. Ye Xiu, who was following behind them, was too distracted to hear what they were saying clearly. "Will it be far if we go back through there?" Ye Xiu heard Suma Cheng say this clearly and was so frightened, his body broke out into cold sweat. It's quite far. We can walk for a bit and then get a taxi." Luckily, Chen Guo still had her common sense. Oh, let's walk for a bit," Suma Cheng said. The 2 girls continued to walk forward in large strides. Ye Xiu didn't stop them and just followed close behind in case they tripped or something. Looking at both sides of the street, all of the houses had their lights turned brightly on. In the night, the lights shined even brighter than the stars. Suddenly, there was a bang. And then from who knew which window, a string of fireworks shot into the sky and exploded, dimming the stars even further. The string of fireworks was like a signal, and one after the other, all sorts of fireworks were set off. The sound of firecrackers also sprung up from all around, filling up the area with booms and crackles. Among these sounds was the sound of a clock. It was finally midnight. The 2 girls were almost within reach and Ye Xiu could see them opening their mouths and shouting something, but their voices were drowned out by the other sounds around them. Even worse, after the fireworks exploded into colorful flowers, raindrop-like things began falling. Chen Guo was the first to be hit. "Oh no!" The nearby Ye Xiu was able to hear Chen Guo shout this out. "Run!" The 2 girls called out to Ye Xiu. The 2 had already begun running. But the problem was that along this road, besides business buildings, the residents were all firing off their fireworks and firecrackers. This rain was dropping all along the road. Where would they run to? The 2 girls didn't seem to understand this logic. As they ran and dodged, they were having a lot of fun. Ye Xiu followed after them and finally understood. The 2 were pretending this was a game. Ye Xiu paid attention to the road. During this special occasion, there were very few taxis around. Even though he was looking for one, there was still no sign of one even after a long time. "I'm so tired. Let's rest a little bit." The 2 girls ran towards a bus stop to take shelter and then looked up together to see the skies filled with colorful flowers. "Look over there, that one looks good." Yeah, over there." The 2 pointed around and continued to laugh, swaying from side to side. Ye Xiu also took cover at the bus stop and looked up. The beautiful flowers covering the sky truly was very gorgeous to look at. Unfortunately, no matter how beautiful the flowers were, they would only stay for so long before fading away. The 3 under the bus stop watched the show put on by the neighborhood families. After the show was done, everything became exceptionally quiet. There would occasionally be a few sounds of fireworks going off, but it only further showed the emptiness after moments of beauty. "It's over," Suma Cheng mumbled as she looked into the sky. "It's not done yet, we still have some at my home. Let's hurry back and set them off," Chen Guo said. "Really?" Suma Cheng immediately became excited again. "Hurry up and find a taxi," the two impatiently urged. But it wasn't easy to find a taxi. The three waited for a long time before they found one. By the time they got back to the internet cafe, the families who didn't care to see the new year had probably gone to sleep already. The two excited girls didn't care about this, though. After returning to the internet cafe, Chen Guo took out all of the fireworks she had bought yesterday. These fireworks had been bought based off of how good their names sounded to Chen Guo. She didn't actually know what they were like, though. After pushing them all outside, the two girls went to ask Ye Xiu to light them up. Ye Xiu lit two of them, one for each of the two girls. The two girls played around with them, firing them off and commenting on them. Previously, they had been spectators. This time, they were participating. Even though no one else was really doing it right now, the two still looked for that type of fun from competing with others and expressed how their fireworks looked better than the others from before. "Not bad, not bad." Ye Xiu added and acted as the fire giver. Chen Guo had truly bought a lot of fireworks. The two girls set them off for a good half an hour. They were finally satisfied and then went back to their rooms to rest. What should we do next? They were done playing with the fireworks, but they clearly weren't ready to stop yet. "We can dungeon," Ye Xiu suggested. The two looked at each other and thought about it for a bit. They really didn't have anything to do, so they accepted Ye Xiu's suggestion. When they came on, quite a few names on the friends list had lit up. Tang Ru wasn't there, though. "Oh, there's only us two," Ye Xiu said to Suma Cheng. "Then let's go with just us two." Suma Cheng didn't care. "You won't fall asleep halfway, right?" Ye Xiu wondered. The two girls had played crazily and had kept up their high energy the entire time. Now that things had quieted down, if the alcohol got to them, they would probably doze off. "You'll be okay by yourself, no?" Suma Cheng said. "Okay, let's go then." The two dungeoned together. Chen Guo hated how she couldn't play with them. She could only go on her chasing haze and play by herself. Ye Xiu's worries had been right on the mark. Not long after they began playing, Chen Guo, who had been playing by herself in the heavenly domain, was the first to get sleepy, and she struggled to keep her eyes open. In the end, she wasn't able to hang on and she slumped in her chair and fell asleep. As for Suma Cheng, because she was playing with someone else, her situation was better than Chen Guo's. But halfway through the dungeon, she began struggling to keep her eyes open. "Hey, hey, 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 hey," Ye Xiu repeatedly reminded. Right now, Suma Cheng was no longer his best partner but the dungeon's secret spy, giving Ye Xiu trouble from time to time. "Hurry up and go to sleep," Ye Xiu said. "I'm not sleepy," Suma Cheng struggled. She lifted her cannon and began firing at monsters. Ye Xiu had his character turn around and run. The monsters at hand hadn't been completely killed off, yet she pulled another mob over, trapping them using the terrain, moving around, kiting, pulling a train. Ye Xiu used everything at his disposal, and with great difficulty, he was able to clear away the giant mob. He turned his head to urge Suma Cheng to go to sleep, but discovered that she had already fallen asleep on her chair. The King's Avatar, Volume 5, Ace Showdown, Chapter 407, Chapter 407, Spring Festival Long Vacation. "Hey, hey, hey, go up and sleep. Hey, 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 go up and sleep." Ye Xiu patted to the left and to the right. The one on the left moved to the left and the one on the right moved to the right. Both of their mouths were muttering something. In any case, they were in a deep sleep and had no intentions of moving. Ye Xiu patted to the left and right again. The two still ignored him. Helpless, Ye Xiu ran upstairs and grabbed blankets for them and then went back to the game. Just like Suma Cheng said, for Ye Xiu, soloing a dungeon wasn't a problem, but it was still more troublesome. Ye Xiu didn't have any other choice, though, so he pressed on forward through the dungeon. Moreover, Suma Cheng may be sleeping, but her character wasn't dead. In order to not waste experience, Ye Xiu had Suma Cheng's cleansing mist follow behind Lord Grimm. Ye Xiu let out a sigh of relief after getting out of the dungeon. Even though he had the ability to solo the dungeon, it taxed him heavily and certainly wasn't efficient. Still, running over to solo a dungeon was very stupid, especially while an event was going on. Ye Xiu hadn't drunk much, so he was still clear-headed. When he exited the dungeon, he had Suma Cheng's character log off and then went to do quests. The Spring Festival events weren't difficult in the first place. If it wasn't a problem for normal players, how could it be a problem for Ye Xiu? After mechanically repeating the quests over and over, he had even gotten on TV a few times, but he didn't really get anything worth being amazed at. Experience was Ye Xiu's main priority though, and from this perspective, the efficiency was very satisfactory. Early in the morning, Chen Guo's and Suma Cheng's alcohol and fatigue had eased up by quite a bit because of the sleep, and the two woke up. "Go up and sleep," Ye Xiu called to them. "Oh." Chen Guo was struggling to wake up. "What are you doing?" Suma Cheng was also trying hard to open her eyes. "Doing quests," Ye Xiu said. "I'll go do some too. I don't want to be left behind." Suma Cheng rubbed her eyes and extended her hands out to grab the mouse. "Don't worry, when I get to level 50, the Heavenly Domain Challenge will take me a long time to finish," Ye Xiu said. "The quest chain won't be bad, but the requirements for the arena might be troublesome in the new server." Suma Cheng checked the level standings and said this after studying the 10th server's character levels. Lord Grimm was too high-leveled. He was at the same level as the top guilds, elite accounts, and those accounts probably wouldn't go the arena at level 50. "A blessing yesterday, a misfortune today," Ye Xiu sighed. Ye Xiu couldn't think of a way. Suma Cheng couldn't either. She could only be helpless along with Ye Xiu. On the other side, Chen Guo was struggling to stand up, but after seeing that Suma Cheng didn't intend on sleeping, she stretched and then sat back down to log in. "What, you're not going to sleep either?" Ye Xiu asked. "All-nighter, what sleep?" Chen Guo opened her eyes wide, but she couldn't open them very wide. She simply didn't have the energy to do so. "All-nighter it is." Ye Xiu wouldn't urge her and quickly returned to his game. As a result, the three each took a computer station and were able to complete the all-nighter tradition. Many players use this as an excuse to play games all night. And tonight, the might of the Spring Festival events could be seen. On the level standings, those who were online all day since the start had a huge advantage over those who hadn't. Ye Xiu's and Suma Cheng's character had both risen up several ranks. After the sun came out, the three logged off and went to sleep. Suma Cheng had originally planned on sleeping at Ye Xiu's place, while Ye Xiu slept on the sofa, but Chen Guo stubbornly refused. Under her invitation, Suma Cheng went asleep together in her room, while Ye Xiu slept in the usual storage room. When they got up, they ate some food and then went to play Glory. For dinner, Chen Guo had reserved a restaurant again, and so the three headed over there to eat another feast. They didn't party as hard as yesterday, and the two girls didn't get so drunk that they were tipsy. After returning, they went to play Glory. This time, they didn't insist on playing all night and went to rest if they felt tired. This lifestyle went on for 3 days. The pattern remained the same, but they were quite happy with it. After all, Glory was their favorite hobby. During a long vacation, doing what you liked without having to worry about work was what most people did for their vacation. Their way of celebrating the holiday wasn't anything out of the ordinary. On the 4th day of the Spring Festival, Chen Guo had to go out. It wasn't like she didn't have relatives. It was just that she wasn't very close to them. She still felt like she had to visit them for New Year's. Chen Guo left in the early morning. When Ye Xiu and Suma Cheng got up, they only saw a slip of paper left by Chen Guo. "Oh, today there's only us two." Ye Xiu read the slip of paper. "What should we do?" Suma Cheng asked. "Have you bought any new clothes for the New Year's?" Ye Xiu asked. "I haven't," Suma Cheng said. "Let's go shopping then," Ye Xiu said. "Okay." Suma Cheng didn't refuse. As a result, today the three didn't sit at the cafe playing the game all day. Chen Guo went out to visit her relatives. Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng went out walking around the city. They ate and took a stroll. It was like a vacation from the game. Chen Guo finished visiting her relatives in one day. Ye Xiu and Sima Cheng didn't have any new goals after walking around the entire day either. The three returned to their previous life and played Glory during the vacation. The long vacation for the Spring Festival usually lasted for 7 days, but for the Pro Alliance, the vacation only lasted 5 days. This was because the Alliance wanted to take advantage of the vacation to add to the players' fun. The 7th day of the Spring Festival was a match day. On the night of the 5th day, Sima Cheng had to go back to the team to get ready. During these few days, Chen Guo had been able to establish a deep friendship with Sima Cheng. Being able to become friends with her idol was something she had never dared of dreaming about before. Right now, her dream had become a reality. She had a smile on her face the entire day. When Sima Cheng left, Chen Guo had sent her who knew how many things as a gift. Ye Xiu watched, a bit speechless. I say it's not like she's leaving to somewhere far away, she's just across the street. What do you know, it's not convenient for Miu Miu to come over, especially because we're at an internet cafe. Chen Guo said. How could I not know? Ye Xiu looked up at the sky. The boss was regarding him less and less like a pro player. It's really too much. I can't carry it all. I'll leave it here for now and I'll come pick it up when I have time, Sima Cheng said. Her other reasons could be accepted. The 4 words, when I have time, made Chen Guo unbearably happy. She obviously welcomed Sima Cheng to come over often, so she quickly split the gifts. So it's like that. Okay, you can come pick these up later. Sima Cheng left. Now it was only Chen Guo and Ye Xiu that remained in the internet cafe. Chen Guo had given her employees 7 days of vacation. Her reason for closing the internet cafe these past few days was mainly in order to concentrate on taking care of Sima Cheng as a guest. Now that Sima Cheng had left, Chen Guo could feel at ease opening up her internet cafe. The internet cafe's business was doing quite well today. In particular, there were many young faces. Many of them couldn't even take out their proof of identity. They tried every way possible to try and trick their way in. Clearly, after receiving their New Year's money, they wanted to go out and spend it. Chen Guo was very lawful towards these people, though. She wouldn't care about that small amount of business. Those who didn't have their proofs of identity wouldn't be able to enter. The helpless kids could only take their red envelopes and leave the line. Who knew how many kids she had to send away today? Chen Guo wasn't so soft. On the 7th day of the Spring Festival, the final day of vacation, the Glory Pro Alliance specially prepared a match day in order to give their Glory fans a happy ending to the vacation. This day had been carefully considered long ago during the planning for this season's schedule. The entire day was filled with highlight matches. Excellent Era versus Tyranny. Even though their current placings were very uneven, their many years of rivalry made this match a match worth seeing. No Excellent Era fan or Tyranny fan would miss this match. Tiny Herb versus Samsara. After Excellent Era's dynasty, the new generation 2-time champion team would be facing the up-and-coming Samsara. It would be a match between the old and the new. Blue Rain versus Thunderclap. Both teams had master tacticians leading. Even though in terms of individual strength, Blue Rain had the advantage, the existence of Thunderclap's Xiao Shiken would give any team trouble. How the two master tacticians would devise their battle plans would definitely attract countless players who were interested in strategy and tactics. 100 Blossoms versus Misty Rain. Mysterious Fantasy versus Bright Green. Every match had something to be noted. Whether that be drama or controversy, all of the matches were filled with hype. The only unfortunate thing was that the competition schedule had been set before the season started. Many hot topics that came out during the season couldn't be arranged into the schedule. For example, Tang Hao versus Lin Jingyan, the fight between the new generation and the old generation, was a fight that had only erupted during the season. Moreover, the two were both powerhouses in their respective teams. If this had been known earlier, a match between Hundred Blossoms versus Wind Howl would have definitely been arranged for today. Such a dazzling array of hyped matches to watch would make any player very conflicted on which one to watch. The TV station had chosen to broadcast the match between Excellent Era and Tyranny. However, this season, Excellent Era's record was quite poor. The two teams weren't on the same competitive level. The match was entirely on their history as rivals. This wasn't something that the people planning the season schedule could have predicted. The highlight match that had been planned for the Spring Festival had lost a lot of hype because of this reason. Luckily, the drama between Sun Xiang and Han Wenqing during the All-Star Weekend made it so that there was something to look out for in this match. Even Chen Guo, who no longer liked Excellent Era, decided to choose this match to watch The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 408. Chapter 408. Su Macheng's transformation at Happy Internet Cafe. Everyone was still on break. Ye Xiu and Chen Guo were the only ones working. When it was about time for the match to be broadcast, the two bustled about, running back and forth, and had even let out a little sweat doing so. Luckily, Chen Guo had plenty of experience. In the past, she had tried doing everything herself like this and knew what troubles would happen with just a few people helping out. As a result, she took precautions beforehand so they wouldn't miss the match's broadcast. However, because she had offended many of the Excellent Era fans, even though today they were broadcasting an Excellent Era match, there weren't many who came today specially for the match. Chen Guo didn't care about this. It was true that the cafe had lost that atmosphere from before, but there was still a good audience size, especially since Excellent Era's match was being broadcasted today. A few passerbyers saw this and joined in. As a business, someone had to watch over the front desk. The two weren't able to get a good seat, so they sat together at the front desk. The commentator and honored guest had already begun doing their pre-game talk. There was a lot less to talk about, though, because of Excellent Era's poor season record. Right now, the commentator and honored guest were discussing the challenge from Sun Xiang to Han Wenqing at the All-Star Weekend, hoping to arouse their audience's feelings. Reality confirmed that it worked. The Excellent Era fans in Happy Internet Cafe were bubbling with excitement. They hoped that today, Excellent Era would be able to crush Tyranny, especially Tyranny's captain Han Wenqing. The uglier the loss, the better. It has to be known that at the All-Star Weekend, Sun Xiang had taken the initiative to challenge Han Wenqing, yet Sun Xiang was the one to lose. This defeat was something that Excellent Era fans could only lower their heads, even when Tyranny fans laughed at them. The battle had received not just a few mocking remarks from Tyranny fans, but the Excellent Era fans could do nothing in retaliation. Win the match versus Tyranny. After the All-Star Weekend, this had become the #1 hope this season for Excellent Era fans. As for making it into the playoffs, it was only a possibility in theory. They didn't have any hope of it actually happening. A match that was looked highly upon by supporters would make it an important match for the teams too. Excellent Era had expressed their confidence and determination in the pre-game briefing. The match soon began. For the first round in the individual competition, Excellent Era started off with Su Macheng and her dancing rain. Chen Guo immediately put down her task at hand and stared attentively at the match. Having not projected Excellent Era's matches in a while, Chen Guo only felt that it was a pity because she couldn't watch her idol play. Even though she later found VODs to watch, it wasn't as exciting as watching it live. Today was a rare opportunity. Chen Guo would give her a good cheer. Wow, Excellent Era starts off with Su Macheng, Speaking of her, ever since the All-Star weekend, Suma Cheng has been performing exceptionally, the commentator said. Yes, you're right, the honored guest affirmed. Do you think that it has anything to do with Ye Xiu appearing at All-Stars and expressing his return with a dragon raises its head? The commentator began instigating the drama, obviously for the audience to listen to. It might be because of that, but it's only a guess. In recent interviews, Suma Cheng always avoids answering these types of questions. The honored guest said, "There's already rumors that Ye Xiu is preparing to create his own team and return to the Pro Alliance that way. If that's true, with Suma Cheng's and Ye Xiu's relationship, she'll definitely be a central part of Ye Xiu's team, no? Coach Lee, what do you think?" Today, the commentator and honored guest was once again Pan Lin and Li Yibo. In the Glory esports scene, the two were well-known casting duos. They would often be sent out for the more exciting matches. The earliest Ye Xiu can come back would be next split in the winter. It's not possible to directly have his team enter the alliance at that time. In other words, if Ye Xiu creates his own team and plans on joining the alliance, if everything goes well, it will have to be at the 10th season. As for Suma Cheng's contract, she still has half a year left. When the 10th season arrives, her contract will have expired. It really is possible. In terms of time, there aren't any hindrances. However, there's still half a year of time. Even if Ye Xiu creates his own team, it's only a rumor right now. We can't make a conclusion so easily. Li Yibo's words were spoken in a somewhat roundabout way. The current him no longer made conclusions so bluntly. His words would often have many extra words to them. Let's first pay attention to the match. After introducing the players who would be appearing on stage, the first round of the individual competition began, and the commentator Pan Lin immediately switched the topic to the match. Coach Lee, don't you feel that Suma Cheng's style has changed after the All-Star weekend? Li Yibo's commentating style had changed, but Pan Lin's was still the same. Pan Lin often brought up topics for Li Yibo to talk about. Li Yibo was quite confident with this question. He didn't answer in a roundabout way and replied directly. In truth, when Suma Cheng partnered with Ye Xiu, she spent the majority of the time supporting him. But recently she has clearly become much more proactive, whether she plays solo or with the team. She now looks like a main attacker. Then Coach Lee, do you feel that this change is due to some type of breakthrough she's made as an individual, or do you think it's because the team requires it? Pan Lin asked. That's hard to say, but I believe that no matter the style or strategy, every player has victory as their end goal. Li Yibo elaborately avoided answering the question. In the past, Chen Guo had liked to hear what the commentator and honored guest analyzed, but after hearing Ye Xiu's explanations and deductions several times when the time came, she turned her head out of habit to see what Ye Xiu had to say. This time, Ye Xiu didn't say anything. Chen Guo didn't like this and tapped Ye Xiu's shoulder. "Hey, say something." "Say what?" Ye Xiu was puzzled. "They're saying that Miu Miu's style has changed." Chen Guo and Suma Cheng had become good friends and now addressed her as Miu Miu. "They're correct, her style has changed," Ye Xiu said. "How has she changed?" This was the question that Li Yibo had avoided. "She's gotten better as an individual," Ye Xiu said. "Really?" Chen Guo was happy, but she quickly realized that Ye Xiu had something more to say. "Then what about from a team perspective?" "They've already said it. She's changed from a support role to an attacker," Ye Xiu said. "Is that change good or bad?" Chen Guo asked. "That can't be seen from a 1v1 match. You have to look at the team's situation to see," Ye Xiu said. "Just tell it to me straight." Chen Guo was anxious. For the current excellent era, this type of change has probably increased the team's strength, Ye Xiu said. Why? Because currently, excellent era's core player is still a relatively solo player. In the past, Suma Cheng's supportive play style didn't just revolve around the core player's tempo and add to it. Her play style required both sides to work together. When the core player attacked, the core player had to consider what she would do. Sun Xiang might have the ability to do this, but right now, he doesn't have that type of awareness, so Sima Cheng's playstyle wouldn't be very effective. It'd be better if she became an attacker to increase the team's battle strength. Ye Xiu said, Sun Xiang is a piece of trash. Chen Guo immediately disdained. If he really was trash, then there's no one in the alliance that would dare call themselves good. Ye Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Trash is trash. Chen Guo violently cursed. Let's watch the match, Ye Xiu said helplessly. The first round of the individual competition wasn't short or long. Both sides played well, but Sima Cheng had seized a crucial opportunity and helped Excellent Era win 1 point. Beautiful, amazing. Chen Guo clapped wildly. Yeah, Ye Xiu added. Elaborate, Chen Guo heard Ye Xiu's tone. Yeah, Ye Xiu repeated himself to save time. Chen Guo restrained herself from picking up her stool and throwing it at him. She could only glare viciously at Ye Xiu and wait for him to explain. I understand your reaction as a crazy fan, but from the actual content of the match, your reaction is too exaggerated. Ye Xiu said, if everyone's like you, where's the fun in watching a match? Chen Guo curled her lips. That's why I'm a pro and you're a spectator. Ye Xiu said bluntly. Chen Guo lost again. Chen Guo was beginning to feel conflicted for the second and third round. Excellent Era was a team she didn't like, but the team had players she liked. For a moment, she wasn't sure whether she should be hoping for Excellent Era to win or lose. Previously, when she didn't watch Excellent Era's matches, she didn't have this type of conflict. But now that she was looking at one, she didn't know what she should be feeling. The match made Chen Guo feel vexed. During her moments of trouble, Excellent Era lost 2 times in a row. Chen Guo immediately made a conclusion and looked down on the 2 Excellent Era matches that had come out, while praising Sima Cheng. The group arrangement for the group arena was standard. The 2 teams' players with Han Wenqing and Sun Xiang last as the anchors. The competition quickly began. This time, Excellent Era's 2 players who went up didn't give a chance for Chen Guo to look down on them. Their performance was exceptional. Not only did they defeat their opponents, they even acquired a huge advantage. In the third round, they fought against Han Wenqing and were able to take down half of the health of Han Wenqing's Desert Smoke. Next was Sun Xiang's turn. This matchup was something that everyone had been looking forward to, but with Han Wenqing's Desert Smoke only with half of his health left, the disadvantage for Han Wenqing was too great. Sun Xiang used this advantage to form a steady strategy. In the end, Sun Xiang defeated Han Wenqing and won his team the group arena victory. However, beating a half-health Han Wenqing didn't make any of the Excellent Era fans satisfied with the revenge. They only felt like Sun Xiang had done something that should have been done. In order to appease their resentment, it would have to be Sun Xiang at half health beating a Han Wenqing at full health. As a result, everything depended on the final team competition. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 409 Chapter 409. Excellent Era is just that. So far, Tyranny had won 2 points, while Excellent Era had won 3 points. However, Excellent Era fans weren't happy. For the current Excellent Era, points were no longer significant. Playoffs wasn't possible, and their standings weren't so bad that they were at risk of falling to the last 2 places and getting eliminated from the alliance. Excellent Era fans hoped to see a moving match. In reality, they didn't even need to win versus Tyranny, but they had to give Tyranny trouble. For Excellent Era, which no longer cared for their standings, their fans only wanted to enjoy the match and no longer cared for the results. The break before the team competition was always relatively long. The commentator Pan Lin and honored guest Li Yibo discussed this issue. These 2 experienced professionals understood the 2 team situations quite clearly. The audience in Happy Internet Cafe were also in a discussion. The atmosphere in the past when broadcasting excellent era games had somewhat reappeared. Truthfully, Chen Yu missed this type of atmosphere. Seeing the customers joining forces to support excellent era, Chen Yu showed a reminiscent expression. After a 20-minute break, the team competition finally began. Both sides sent out the arrangement they usually used for the team competition. Happy Internet Cafe quickly began growing excited, shouting and cheering for Team Excellent Era. But who could have thought that this team competition was like a splash of cold water to Excellent Era fans? At the start of the match, Team Excellent Era charged forward, giving their fans a sense of confidence and spirit. But after a few minutes of fighting, anyone who knew even a little bit about Glory could see that Excellent Era was at a complete disadvantage. Tactics. The decisive factor for this match wasn't spirit, confidence, mechanics, performance, or experience, but tactics. It goes without saying that the person to look out for was Team Tyranny's Zhang Xinji. Tactics wasn't something that was easy to see from a direct observation like an amazing play that was seen in 2 or 3 seconds, instantly pumping up the crowd. There was more to see in tactics. It's like a story filled with foreshadowing. The beginning might be dull and tedious, but once everything came together, the true importance of tactics would be revealed. The unceasing attacks from then on would cause the crowd to think back to the dull and tedious parts in the beginning and figure out what their purpose was. The match turned out to be just like this. The first few minutes seemed like a normal confrontation, but after getting past this point, Tyranny began to continuously gain the advantage. The commentator and honored guest had been analyzing possible tactical intent at the start, but once the moment arrived, they connected the moves from the first few minutes and thoroughly analyzed the tactical plan. "This is what you call brilliant," Ye Xiu praised. "You're right." Chen Guo nodded her head. Because she had already abandoned her identity as an Excellent Era fan, she wasn't as dispirited and downcast as the other Excellent Era supporters in the Internet Cafe and appreciated Zhang Xinji's tactical plan objectively. A lone wolf like Sun Xiang fears this type of preparation and fears strategy and tactics with direction to them. Don't look at how Tyranny was never worse than Excellent Era in terms of strength. Even Thunderclap might be able to gobble up Excellent Era. Ye Xiu said, because they have Zio Shiken. Chen Guo obviously knew the names of the 4 famous master tacticians. Correct. What about the current Excellent Era? Is there anyone there good at tactics? Chen Guo asked. There might not be anyone in the entire alliance who could answer this question with more authority than Ye Xiu. After a few seconds of silence, Ye Xiu slowly shook his head. HMPH, retribution. Chen Guo said impolitely. Excellent Era originally had a master tactician. Ye Xiu was one of them, but after Excellent Era kicked him out, a lot of problems arose. Chen Guo obviously felt happy about it because she no longer liked them anymore. For this season, Excellent Era is just that. As Ye Xiu made this remark, the team competition ended with Tyranny winning. If the results were looked at on paper, it looked like Tyranny only barely won with only 2 of their players left at the end. But as long as one saw how the match progressed, one would know that the results may have been close, but it was a closeness that had been predetermined. It's not like it mattered how many players were alive at the end of the match. This was why sometimes trading blows to end the match could be a very direct and effective strategy. In the news briefing after the match, the briefing expressed how rare it was for the 2 bitter enemies to not have a tense fight, but those were only words for appearance purposes. Tyranny gave a few simple words towards the match, and then talked about the end goal for this season and their plans for playoffs. These were all things that Excellent Era didn't have for this season. A few reporters believed there was another meaning behind these words, and felt that Tyranny was trying to say that Excellent Era was not at the same level as them, so it was beneath them to talk about Excellent Era. Excellent Era had less of a voice as the losers. Excellent Era politely praised Tyranny's incredible tactics, and then added in, as if by accident, that it was because they were playing on Tyranny's home grounds that Tyranny was able to prepare such fine tactics. Then, they said how it was a pity that they wouldn't have any more chances to fight against Tyranny this season, and hoped that next season, the two teams would have another intense match. The reporters once again noticed that their statement implied that Excellent Era was like a nobleman taking revenge. Even 10 years wouldn't be too late. Excellent Era understood what their fans were feeling and didn't want to recklessly make a call. A loss was a loss. Still, making remarks like a dead duck was very unclassy. Even though Excellent Era hadn't touched the championship cup in 4 years, they still had the glorious record of having 3 championship titles to their name, and had always considered themselves as the #1 team in the Pro Alliance. The news briefing ended peacefully, and Happy Internet Cafe's broadcast also ended. The crowd began to disperse as well. Seeing how all of them looked so dejected, Chen Gu really wanted to go up and ask them, "Do you miss Ye Xiu?" In the end, Chen Gu decided not to do so because Ye Xiu was sitting right there. She felt like standing out like that wouldn't make anyone feel grateful towards her. It was much more likely that they would hate her. After sending off a large batch of customers, Ye Xiu and Chen Gu returned to the game. Today, the cafe had gotten loud for a bit because of the match, but then the business returned to the usual. The later it got, the fewer customers there were. There weren't really any new customers that came. When it was almost midnight, there wasn't even a single person left in the internet cafe. Before and after this, a lot of young kids without any proof of identity came to go on the computers. Chen Gu naturally shooed them away. At 11 o'clock, a large group of youths came and discussed with Chen Gu the conditions for an all-nighter at the internet cafe. Chen Gu refused to budge, and just like everyone else, if they didn't have any proof of identity, then they would have to leave. There was no room for negotiation. When the last customer left, she rolled down the shutters and closed the door. During the long vacation, she had fun with her idol and played the game with her. Even though Chen Gu didn't always accompany them for an all-nighter, her usual sleep schedule had been broken. Right now it was 12 o'clock. In the past, she would already be in bed, but she currently didn't feel like sleeping. What should she do? There was only glory. She tidied up the front desk with Ye Xiu, and then the two sat at their usual computers and played on their accounts. "How's it going? Has anything happened recently?" Ye Xiu asked. Chen Gu shook her head and then turned around to look at Ye Xiu's screen. "What level are you?" "Level 49. I'll rush to 50 tonight," Ye Xiu said. The time for history to be made had finally arrived. Chen Gu decided that she wouldn't sleep today in order to remember this moment of glory. "What do you plan on doing after getting to level 50? Chen Gu asked. "I'll do the quest first and then wait for everyone else to level up," Ye Xiu said. "What a waste of time," Chen Gu sighed. Normal players often had to repeat the content in the quest chain several times before succeeding, which was why they usually felt that it took so long. But for Ye Xiu, Chen Gu was certain that he would be able to pass it on his first try. He wouldn't need to repeat anything and finish it step by step. The quest chain for the Heavenly Domain Challenge wouldn't take too long. However, for the arena portion, he would have to wait for the majority of the player base to reach level 50, which would usually take about a month. Right now there were events for the Spring Festival. However, most players wouldn't be like Ye Xiu and play all day every day, so their leveling speed couldn't compare to Ye Xiu's. Even with the event going on, the majority of the players would still need half a month. During this half a month, Ye Xiu would have nothing to do. That night, Chen Gu didn't sleep. As she did quests, she paid attention to Lord Grimm's experience bar. Finally, she personally witnessed this historical event. Under the white light from the computer screen, Lord Grimm reached level 50, becoming the first in the 10th server to get to level 50. Due to the nature of the Spring Festival, the accounts from the top guilds weren't being played on 24/7. In the past few days, Ye Xiu actually played more than them, with Chen Guo helping Ye Xiu level while he was sleeping. During these 7 days of vacation, Lord Grimm had become the 10th server's #1 player. But unfortunately, the 10th server didn't have any event for begin the highest level. Even though Lord Grimm was the first to reach level 50, he didn't get any rewards. He only received a few gasps of admiration from a few players. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com. Chapter 410. Chapter 410. Heavenly Domain Challenge. Start. Apart from the 1000 Chance umbrella, the other equipment on the level 50 Lord Grimm was very ordinary. Because he didn't have a class, he couldn't wear class-specific sets, so he simply switched equipment whenever he found it convenient to. Ye Xiu had more than enough money to buy these common equipment. As a result, he had equipment of all different kinds and of all different levels. This was what other experienced players did as well though. Before reaching max level, very few players cared to buy the best equipment for themselves. The reason the top guilds would do this was because 1. They needed the best conditions for challenging the dungeon records, and 2. They had many players and plenty of resources. Most of the resources didn't need to be spent on the majority of the guild members, so the guild could allocate a bit of it to buy the most optimal equipment for their elites. But now that Lord Grimm was level 50 and Ye Xiu had plenty of time to spare, he could carefully prepare a set of good equipment for himself. There was no need to get the best, but finding a proper set of equipment could increase his level 50 battle strength by quite a lot. Ye Xiu went to the main city and began searching the market. The 10th server had opened for 2 months, and the market could be considered as stable now. The new players that had come at the opening of the server had played for 2 months now, and the majority of them weren't as newbie as before. They had a basic understanding of the prices for different types of equipment and which equipment were useful. As for uncommon materials, which was always in need, even idiots knew that these materials weren't trash. When Lord Grimm leveled to 50, it was already the latter half of the morning. The market was still bustling with activity though. However, most of the characters at the vendor stalls weren't active. Players would often go to sleep and leave their characters in the game with a vendor stall. Ye Xiu obviously knew this, so as he moved through the market, he wouldn't bother haggling over any prices that weren't too ideal. He simply skimmed through the stalls as he walked. With the production capability of over 10 million players, apart from items dropped by wild bosses, which only spawned a certain amount of times per week, there was more supply than demand. As long as one had patience, one could find anything in the market. Ye Xiu wasn't looking for anything too great, and understanding this idea, he patiently scoured around. He opened his money bag again and again, buying equipment after equipment. After walking through one street, the equipment on Lord Grimm looked completely new now. Ye Xiu opened up his stats page and nodded his head in satisfaction. "What's the logic behind your equips?" Chen Guo asked. She had been quietly watching Ye Xiu buy equipment the entire time. She had wanted to speak several times, but she never did because she wanted to rely on her own knowledge to figure out why. However, after observing the whole times, she couldn't understand, so she could only ask. Ye Xiu turned his head to look at Chen Guo and said, "By a price-to-stat ratio." Chen Guo had lost again. A price-to-stat ratio was a very practical reason. It was just that Chen Guo had thought that a top-tier god would look at things from an overall perspective. However, looking at things based on a price-to-stat ratio wouldn't be good for that purpose, which was why Chen Guo hadn't thought that Ye Xiu would choose equipment based on that logic. Even when she saw Ye Xiu buy an individual equipment and thought of this, She threw away that thought every time. Who would have thought that it really was just like that? A great top-tier god bought equipment based off of its price-to-stat ratio. Chen Guo felt like Ye Xiu was unworthy of his treasure trove of uncommon materials. "This is good enough for the heavenly domain challenge," Ye Xiu said. "Oh," Chen Guo was surprised but quickly understood. "Are you comparing the price based on the difficulty of the challenge?" Ye Xiu nodded his head. He went around the city preparing his equipment and received all of the quests for the Heavenly Domain Challenge. Arena. Quest chain. There were 2 parts to it. As a result, when Ye Xiu passed by the arena entrance, he had Lord Grimm look around even though he clearly knew he was the only level 50 character in the 10th server. It could be seen that even God Ye Xiu was a person. Even he hoped that pie would fall from the sky sometimes. In the end, there was nothing to be found in the arena, so he began the quest chain. There were many steps in the quest chain. The first step was to return to the beginner village and find the NPC to receive the quest and help him find his money bag, which he lost in the creek nearby. It was a very common quest. After receiving it, the player simply followed the directions given by the NPC, and then the player would reach the quest scenario. The Heavenly Domain quest scenario were actually dungeon-like in nature. However, it had to be completed alone, so there was no need to worry about anyone else messing up your challenge, and there was also no need to try asking others for help. Finding the money bag sounded cute, but in reality, it tested the player's ability to jump. The scenario was set in rapid flowing water. The player could only jump on the rocks to move forward. If the player accidentally jumped into the water, the player would immediately be carried by the water to shore, and the player would have to try again. The money bag was located on one of the rocks in the creek. The arrangement of the rocks and the money bag's location was random. This made it so that it wasn't possible to make a guide for it. The player could only rely on his own strength to jump around and find it. Chen Guo had been stuck on this quest for a long time when she was attempting the Heavenly Domain Challenge. She had fallen into the water countless times, but in the end, she was able to find the money bag. Now that there was a god in front of her, Chen Guo obviously wanted to watch him play. She saw Ye Xiu get to the scenario, charge towards the river bank, and then directly jump without stopping to look. He never paused. By looking at Ye Xiu's screen, Chen Guo could see just how fluid and quick Ye Xiu was with these movements. His screen was never in the same place for even 1 second. His camera constantly turned. Chen Guo didn't know if he was looking for the money bag or looking for a place to land. His character jumped non-stop. Chen Guo no longer knew which direction he was heading in. After 3 minutes, Lord Grimm jumped back onto shore and then left. Chen Guo was dumbstruck. She stared at the screen dumbly, and after a minute she confirmed that Ye Xiu was heading back to the beginner village. She asked in astonishment, "You're done?" "Done," Ye Xiu said. "The money bag," Ye Xiu opened up his inventory. Because the money bag was a quest item, the name was in a different color, so it was easy to distinguish it from the other items. "When did you pick it up?" Chen Guo hadn't seen it. "That." Ye Xiu felt that it was hard to describe. "I didn't see it at all." Chen Guo said. "If you told me earlier, I could have gone slower," Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo was speechless all the way until Ye Xiu handed over the money bag and started the second quest. The second quest was a battle, but there were restrictions. Only normal attacks could be used. No skills were allowed. At that time, this quest had made Chen Guo cough up blood. For gunners, normal attacks were a type of style. Even though they could be fired in all sorts of positions and movements, the only way to do damage was to hit the opponent with the shots. A gunner without skills was like playing a game of Counter-Strike. It was a 1v100 game. You only had 1 life bar. If you died, you had to start over. The only good thing was that if you died, there was no penalty. If there were penalties for dying in the Heavenly Domain Challenge, the Glory Company would certainly be under terrorist attacks. This 1v100 quest had a storyline to it, but Ye Xiu obviously didn't care. He took the quest and skipped all of the talking. Chen Guo switched positions and prepared to admire a performance by a god, but very quickly, tears streaked her cheeks. She had used Lord Grimm before. How could she have forgotten about the 1000-chance umbrella? One class only had one set of normal attacks, but Lord Grimm had 6 sets. Every form of the 1000-chance umbrella was another set. Melee attacks, all-around attacks, even shield attacks. The 100 enemies weren't bosses. In reality, they didn't even have the strength of level 70 monsters. Lord Grimm was only level 50 though, so against 100 from a level comparison he was at a disadvantage. But apart from the 1000-chance umbrella, Ye Xiu was also a beast. What was a small difference in levels to him? It was just talk, that's all. Ye Xiu's 1000-chance umbrella continuously switched forms. Every change wasn't like how when Chen Guo used it. She sometimes just changed forms for fun. For Ye Xiu, every change of form had a purpose. After switching forms, the weapon would immediately use an appropriate attack to deal with the enemy. On his screen's quest list, the 100 number kept decreasing. Lord Grimm's health also continued to decrease. But Chen Guo knew that it wasn't because Ye Xiu couldn't hang on, it was because he didn't care. He had more than enough health to wipe out the 100 monsters. He didn't need to care about his health. It wasn't like the system cared how much health he had left at the end. The second scenario was quickly passed. Chen Guo looked at the time. His progress compared to hers at that time were like night and day. Ye Xiu directly entered the third scenario. The third scenario was also a battle, but this was a 1 versus 1 with no restrictions. But the opponent was a boss. The Midnight Phantom Cat, Green Forest's hidden boss. Of course, it wasn't level 10 like the one encountered in Green Forest. If it really was level 10, even if it was a hidden boss, it would be obliterated by any level 70 player. The Midnight Phantom Cat had grown to level 70. A level 70 hidden boss against a level 50 character, but the player was a top-tier expert in glory. In any case, it was a very unusual matchup. Chen Guo held her breath and watched Ye Xiu fight without any hesitation. The level 70 Midnight Phantom Cat was like a crying mouse in front of Ye Xiu. Chen Guo could even hear the cat's shrieks and cries. The system has no way of stopping him. Chen Guo quietly thought as she watched the Fight the King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 411 Chapter 411. A true god Ye Xiu passed the third test with ease. This was something that didn't surprise Chen Guo. Soloing a level 70 hidden boss sounded too excessive even as a test to enter the heavenly domain. If it really was as difficult as it sounded, the heavenly domain would be a dead server. The Midnight Phantom Cat really was a level 70 hidden boss and had the strength and power of a level 70 hidden boss. The only thing it didn't have was a boss's health. Health was a boss's greatest advantage. A boss without a second bar behind its first health bar could hardly be considered a boss. The Midnight Phantom Cat of the third test was this type of boss. His health value couldn't be put together with the other bosses. The level 50 Lord Grimm had a 20-level suppression facing the level 70 monster, who knew how many times weaker his attacks and skill effects were. In the end, Ye Xiu still defeated it quickly. The cat rarely had the chance to hit back before becoming a corpse. The corpse became a quest item and was thrown into Ye Xiu's inventory. The third test was complete. Ye Xiu was as calm as ever, while Chen Guo was indescribably excited. Seeing Ye Xiu roll through the heavenly domain challenge that gave other players headaches trying to beat it made Chen Guo feel delighted. It was like if she had been bullied by some big kid for a long time, and then someone else came and beat the kid up in one punch. It was such a thrilling feeling of justice. If it wasn't just the two of them and clapping wildly would look stupid, Chen Guo would have already started clapping. The fourth test, the fourth test. Chen Guo urged Ye Xiu to hurry up. The fourth test was given just before leaving the beginner village. The quest was a delivery. The fourth test was set up along the delivery route and took place along a narrow, rugged mountain road. On both sides were bottomless abysses. If the character fell, the character would die. This test tested the player's ability to move precisely. For this test, Chen Guo had moved one step at a time, slowly crawling forward. Even with this, she had fallen to her death countless times. Chen Guo was confident that Ye Xiu would beat it in a few minutes again, but the way he passed it was even more astonishing than what Chen Guo had imagined. On such a narrow and rugged path, one slight misstep would cause the player to miss the road and fall. Ye Xiu actually had the nerves to use aerial fire. Chen Guo couldn't even imagine how it was possible to use aerial fire so precisely. Every landing he made was completely on point. Speaking of this, Ye Xiu had played as a battle mage. Why was he so skilled at using gunner techniques? Chen Guo didn't doubt that Ye Xiu was proficient with every class, but having such proficiency was a bit too much. No. Chen Guo felt like even a pro gunner might not have the confidence to use aerial fire to move along this road. In addition, he flew forward without ever stopping. It has to be known that this scenario was just like the first scenario in that the road was created at random. The curves along the road were different for everyone. So not only was it impossible to use a guide, it wasn't possible to practice along the same road. It completely depended on how proficient the player was at using aerial fire. Chen Guo stared at Ye Xiu inconceivably. She had thought that she wouldn't look at the god this way ever again. She had thought that she understood just how great the god was. Now from the looks of it, his skill seemed bottomless. When the fourth test was passed, Chen Guo was completely speechless. Ye Xiu also let out a sigh of relief. He got up, went to get a drink of water, and lit up a cigarette. After walking around and finished smoking, he returned to his seat. "Let me try a test," Chen Guo asked Ye Xiu. She suddenly had the urge to do one. "Go ahead." Ye Xiu didn't mind. As a result, Chen Guo switched to Ye Xiu's computer and began controlling Lord Grimm. For the Heavenly Domain Challenge, many players repeated every test many times before eventually passing it, so they all had a deep impression of it. Chen Guo didn't need any reminders. Her memory of the entire quest chain was excellent, and she quickly received the fifth test. The content for this test wasn't a battle. Chen Guo didn't think that she was good enough to beat a level 70 opponent with just a level 50 character. If she had that type of skill, she wouldn't have thought that completing the Heavenly Domain Challenge at level 50 was inconceivable. This inconceivability was mostly towards the battles. The running and jumping wasn't any different for a level 50, and a level 70 character, the fifth test, was another one that tested the player's technical skills. This time, the main technique that would be tested was rolling. Many of the obstacles in the scenario were too high to directly walk past. Crouching and walking was too slow. Lying down and crawling was even slower, so it could only be done with rolling. This test shared the same design as the previous one. The player couldn't miss a single one. For this test, if the rolling wasn't timed correctly, such as if the player hit the obstacle, the player would immediately be killed and would have to start again. At that time, Chen Guo had passed this test by herself. Ye Xiu passing the past 4 tests in one try made him look so mighty and powerful. She also wanted to try and see if she could show such might herself. Reality proved that this wasn't a possibility. Even though Chen Guo had passed the tests before, it was clear that Ye Xiu had passed these tests entirely relying on his skill, while normal players partially relied on luck. They didn't completely pass through with ease. They had gotten through a few parts by coincidence. If they tried again, unless their mechanics had actually improved, they could only pray that they were lucky again. As for Chen Guo, not only was she unlucky, her condition wasn't great either. Staying up all night wasn't one of her strengths. It was already late at night and she was already tired. Apart from that, Ye Xiu was watching on the side too, so she was also a bit nervous. "Don't look." Chen Guo turned her head. "When was I looking?" Ye Xiu asked back. Chen Guo was speechless. Ye Xiu really hadn't been looking, he was playing on her chasing haze. Suddenly, Chen Guo felt like she wanted Ye Xiu to look, but she had just said don't look, so changing her mind was a bit embarrassing. She could only try again. Failed, failed, failed. Chen Guo continued to fail. She had gotten through only 6 obstacles on her best run. Chen Guo stole a glance at Ye Xiu, who was playing quite happily on her chasing haze account. He really wasn't paying attention at all. Chen Guo continued to try and continued to fail. In the end, she wasn't able to take it anymore. "Hey!" Chen Guo shouted. "You're done." Ye Xiu turned his head to ask. Chen Guo cried, "I couldn't pass it." "Then let me try." Ye Xiu and Chen Guo switched seats. After 2.5 minutes, Lord Grimm exited the scenario. Chen Guo only hated how she didn't have the Sharingan and couldn't copy Ye Xiu's gaming skill. "Do you want to try the next one?" Ye Xiu showed his care for Chen Guo. "I'm going to sleep." Chen Guo got up and decided that she wouldn't anger herself. "You're going to sleep?" Ye Xiu looked at the time. "Is the internet cafe opening today?" "Yes." "When?" Ye Xiu asked. "At noon." Chen Guo said, because the internet cafe didn't have many customers in the morning anyways. Chen Guo didn't force her employees to wake up early and hurry over to work after the break. As a result, she decided to open up the business again at noon. "Are you going to be able to get up at noon? Do you need me to stay until noon to open up the doors?" Ye Xiu asked. "No need." "Okay." Ye Xiu nodded his head and continued to play the game. Chen Guo began to hesitate again. In reality, she wanted to watch Ye Xiu do the Heavenly Domain Challenge. Seeing the god crush the missions that gave normal players an unbearably difficult time was very exciting. She had decided to sleep because she had been somewhat upset, but now she felt like it would be a waste to sleep and it would be better to keep watching. But Ye Xiu reminded her that they had to start the business at noon. This was a big issue for her. Business would always be there, but there was only one chance to see Ye Xiu do these quests. In the end, Chen Guo persuaded herself with this reasoning and came back to watch. Seeing Ye Xiu look at her incredulously, Chen Guo glared at him. "What are you looking at?" "I don't feel like sleeping, is that not okay?" "Then what do you want to do?" Ye Xiu asked. "Watch you do the quests." Chen Guo said before noticing that Ye Xiu had logged out of the game. On his screen was a video of a glory match. Why aren't you doing the quests?" Chen Guo asked. "There's no hurry," Ye Xiu said. "There's plenty of time to do it." "What video are you watching?" Chen Guo was curious. After looking at it for a moment, she was surprised. "Wasn't that tonight's match between Tyranny and Excellent Era?" "Yeah, team competition." "Didn't you already see it?" Chen Guo was puzzled. "I want to study it again," Ye Xiu said. This was another difference between a casual and a professional. A casual would see it once and be done. A professional would see each match as a material to study, observing the opponents and studying them. Even though Ye Xiu wasn't in the Pro Alliance right now, he still did this. "Tell me what there is to see in this match," Chen Guo said. "Are you sure with your aptitude?" "What are you saying?" Chen Guo was unable to restrain her anger. "It's like this. See, last night Li Yibo said that the diagonal charge forward by Han Wenking's Desert Dust was when Tyranny began reaping gains from their tactics. That actually isn't correct," Ye Xiu said. "MMHM." Chen Guo nodded his head. "What are you MMHing for? You don't actually remember, do you?" Ye Xiu asked. "I remember," Chen Guo shouted. She didn't have any way to prove she did, so she could only use her voice as justification. "Okay, that's good, then look. In reality, Tyranny began holding the advantage from here. See Immovable Rock's position, do you see it? Zhang Jixi's Immovable Rock." Chen Guo nodded her head. "I asked if you see his position." "I saw it." "Then what does this position tell you?" Isn't that what you're supposed to be explaining? You can't think about it for yourself. With my aptitude, Chen Guo darkened. Oh, that's right, Ye Xiu said with a face that implied, I know. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 412 Chapter 412. Team Secret. The stifled Chen Guo still watched the match between Tyranny and Excellent Era again with Ye Xiu. This time, she wasn't watching for fun, nor was she enjoying the atmosphere with other passionate fans. This time, she was appreciating the match and studying it. Ye Xiu explained the reasoning behind the position of Zhang Xinji's immovable rock in detail. Chen Guo suddenly felt like a new world had opened before her. When they watched, they didn't watch it all the way through to the end in one breath. Ye Xiu often paused during several moments and rewound to watch it again, looking at the scene from a different viewpoint. Only then did Chen Guo realize that Ye Xiu wasn't watching the direct VOD of the broadcasted match, but the VOD uploaded after the match onto the game's spectating interface. The spectating interface was the same as the one in the arena. By using the spectating features in Glory, the viewpoint could be switched freely. If one were to study a match, these features were necessary. However, this type of VOD would have to be downloaded. The size of the file wasn't small either. As soon as Chen Guo had left, Ye Xiu had begun watching it. This meant that he had downloaded the file much earlier. He had planned on studying the match beforehand. It wasn't something he had done on a whim. He really deserves to be called a professional. Chen Guo quietly thought. Her mind sometimes wandered off. This was because in some of the places where Ye Xiu rewound, he didn't say anything. Chen Guo watched on the side but had no idea what she was supposed to be looking for. Seeing Ye Xiu look so serious, she felt bad bothering him, so she thought about other things. When Ye Xiu finished watching a section, he would sometimes explain what he analyzed to Chen Guo, but sometimes he wouldn't say anything and just continue on. Chen Guo didn't say too much. She listened when Ye Xiu explained and didn't ask when Ye Xiu didn't say anything. And just like this, Ye Xiu took an hour to finish watching the 24-minute match from beginning to end. He wasn't done either. After watching the conclusion, he went back to several moments and watched those again. Chen Guo was feeling many different emotions right now. She had originally thought that she was quite familiar with Glory and felt that the only difference between her and a pro player was in mechanics. But after hearing Ye Xiu analyze the match in such detail, Chen Guo deeply felt that her original thoughts were too simple. She suddenly thought of when Ye Xiu said to Tang Ru, "If you want to surpass me, then you have to at least know how large the gap between us is." Chen Guo discovered that these words applied to her too. It would be applicable to many Glory veterans. The difference between players who played for fun and professionals who played for a living was unimaginable. Okay, that's enough. Ye Xiu nodded his head after rewatching several details. You're done studying it? Chen Guo asked. Pretty much, Ye Xiu said. He created a Word document and titled it Tyranny vs. Excellent Era. Then, he added the date in parentheses and wrote down a few things. Chen Guo watched for a bit and saw that he was doing a summary of the match. Ye Xiu also wrote down some of the things he had explained to Chen Guo. Chen Guo learned that being a pro player was much more difficult than she had imagined. Pros didn't just play the game all day to practice and then go on stage for the match when the time came. Chen Guo accompanied him without saying a word. After Ye Xiu finished writing what he wanted on the Word document, he saved it. Then he clicked on the folder where he would put it in. The folder astonished Chen Guo. There were countless documents inside with the team names and their match dates. These, the matches from the past 2 months. Ye Xiu said, "You watched all of them." "Not all of them," Ye Xiu said. "Can I look at them?" Chen Guo asked. "Sure." Ye Xiu let her sit in his seat. Chen Guo sat down and clicked on a few of the documents in the folder. They were just like the one Ye Xiu had just completed. In these documents were details he had analyzed from the matches, from tactics to movements, even what the players might have been thinking at that moment. This really is too. Chen Guo couldn't find the right words to express what she was feeling. It's nothing. It's a job, Ye Xiu said. Is there anything I can do to help? Chen Guo realized how difficult being a pro was. If they really were going to form a team, then Ye Xiu would only have more work to do. Chen Guo hoped that she could help share the responsibility. Later, when there's more, you can help me organize them, organizing while learning from them. When your skill level is higher, you can try do some analysis. Ye Xiu said, I'm not good enough. Chen Guo immediately said, not now obviously. I'm saying that if you really want to learn, doing this sort of thing will be helpful, Ye Xiu said. Then I'll give it a try. Chen Guo was very confident in herself. It was just that in glory she didn't have much confidence when compared to Ye Xiu. It's late already, go take a rest. You still have to open up the cafe at noon, Ye Xiu said. I'll go to sleep, what about you? I'm going to rest for a bit too, Ye Xiu said. He looked a bit tired. In Chen Guo's eyes, as long as he was playing glory, he would always be full of energy. Did anything unusual happen today? He had done a few of the heavenly domain tests and analyzed a match. From the looks of things, these were quite a bit more tiring than leveling up. After the two cleaned up, they both went asleep. They naturally slept until noon. When Ye Xiu woke up, Chen Guo was already gone. He tidied up his room and went downstairs. The internet cafe had already opened up. Business was slow in the afternoon, so it wasn't too busy. When Ye Xiu came down, the employees who had just come back from a long vacation greeted Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu looked around and saw Chen Guo was at their computer stations, telling someone to do something. Ye Xiu recognized this person. He was a computer repair technician. He wasn't usually around at the internet cafe and was called over whenever there was a problem with a computer. What's wrong with the computers? Ye Xiu asked. I'm planning on running a network cable that's separate from the server network to the computer, Chen Guo said. Why? Ye Xiu didn't understand. Because these computers contain information gathered up by our team, we can't be careless, Chen Guo explained. Are you joking? Ye Xiu wasn't sure. Of course not, only this computer has your documents downloaded onto it. I've just added a password to it too. I'll tell it to you in a bit, Chen Guo whispered. Aren't you being a bit excessive? Ye Xiu also whispered. This is an internet cafe after all. It's not like your former club, so we have to be more careful. Chen Guo cautiously glanced around as if right now, the ones sitting at the internet cafe weren't customers but spies looking for secret information. Oh, so it's like that, Ye Xiu nodded his head. He didn't say anything more. Chen Guo's actions were quite reasonable. The teams in the Pro Alliance considered their equipment, strategies, tactics, and analysis of opponents as secrets. They wouldn't be revealed so easily. Even though their team happy only existed in words, it wasn't bad to prepare. Is little Tang coming back today? Ye Xiu watched technician tinker with the computer while saying to Chen Guo. She called me today and she said that she'd be back tomorrow, Chen Guo said. She's been playing quite a lot these past few days. Ye Xiu said. Yeah. You guys have taken advantage of the Spring Festival event, Chen Guo said. During the Spring Festival, it couldn't be said that there weren't many players online, but there truly weren't many elites from the top guilds that were online. It wasn't hard to explain this. For normal players, when they had a break, they would take some time to play and have some fun. It was very normal. But for the guild elites, the game was their work, so during the Spring Festival, they wouldn't play games during vacation. As a result, Ye Xiu, Sima Cheng, and Tang Ru could be considered as having been online for a long time. The rewards from the Spring Festival were good, and after the 7 days of break ended, the three were the top 3 players on the 10th server level standings. Ye Xiu's Lord Grim was placed first. He was already level 50. Next was Tang Ru's Soft Mist and then Sima Cheng's Cleansing Mist. Both were level 49, but their experience bars were at different stages. Are these 3 characters going to be our team members in the future? Chen Guo asked. She was considering the idea of a team more and more seriously now. "I hope so," Ye Xiu said. "Which one of them aren't you too certain about?" Chen Guo asked. "Little Tang," Ye Xiu said. "So you're saying Miu Miu will definitely join us?" Chen Guo began growing excited. "I think she'd be quite happy with that," Ye Xiu said. "Little Tang, I'll have a chat with her when there's a chance to," Chen Guo said. Ye Xiu nodded his head. "That's only 3 people though, it won't be enough," Chen Guo said. "We'll take it slowly," Ye Xiu said. "Are there enough of these types of characters? Players need time to improve. Characters also need time to grow stronger. If we're just looking at these right now, there are too many things that we don't have enough. We don't even have enough players," Ye Xiu said. "Is a year and a half enough time?" Chen Guo said. "Starting a team from scratch is something I have experience with." Ye Xiu smiled. "Tell me your plan," Chen Guo said. "Our current problem is that we're lacking players. There are 2 ways to find players. One way is to search for talent yourself and train them. The second way is to look for already matured players from other teams. The second way can't be accomplished before we enter the alliance, so let's start with those around us first. Speaking of this, you've been playing Glory for a while, and you've been managing the internet cafe for so long. Is there anyone you know that you feel is pretty good?" Ye Xiu asked Chen Guo. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 413, Chapter 413. Spectator Ye Xiu used his position to ask Chen Guo if she had any recommendations. Chen Guo had been managing the internet cafe and playing Glory for many years. Playing the game also made it easier for her to get along with the customers. During these 2 months, Ye Xiu had noticed that all sorts of people acted very familiar with her. They were only internet cafe customers and Glory players too. Among these, were there any experts, beginners, or players with talent? Ye Xiu would sometimes take a glance at other customers playing Glory when he had nothing to do, but he didn't see anything particularly noteworthy. However, Chen Guo definitely knew more about this than he did. Unfortunately, most of these people were Excellent Era fans. After Chen Guo refused to project Excellent Era's match that day, she had offended many of them. In the end, the relationship between the 2 sides was simply that they recognized each other. Neither sides really had any mutual feelings for each other and could turn hostile faster than one could flip a page. I really haven't discovered any. Even if there were, it's already too late," Chen Guo replied. "Why?" "We're right next to Team Excellent Era, so even if there were talents, they would have already tried getting into Team Excellent Era. Why would they wait for you to find them?" Chen Guo said. "Are you reliable?" Ye Xiu asked. "If I'm not reliable, why would you ask me?" Chen Guo didn't reply nicely. "Are there any plausible ones? Let me evaluate them myself," Ye Xiu said. "As if all of the people I know are at my level at best," Chen Guo said. Ye Xiu sighed helplessly. "It looks like asking you won't get me anywhere." "What do you mean? How else did little Tang come about?" Chen Guo said. "Oh, that." Ye Xiu had made a mistake. He just realized that he had already found one talent through Chen Guo. Tang Ru was a talent that Wang Jixi had tried to pull into the team. For Ye Xiu to happen to bump into a talent like this in an internet cafe was already very lucky of him. Glory had tens of millions of players and there were only a few hundred pro players. Talent could only be found by chance and not by searching for it. When will the computer be done? Because talent could only be found by chance, there was no point thinking about it too much, so Ye Xiu could only concern himself with what was in front of him. "It'll be done soon," Chen Guo said. Just as she finished saying this, the computer technician stood up and patted the computer. "It's done. Go test it out." Chen Guo told Ye Xiu to go. Ye Xiu tried out Glory. He logged into the game. Everything went smoothly like normal, so he nodded his head. Chen Guo went over and told him where she put the folder with all of his research documents and then whispered to him the password. With the way she was acting, it looked like the 2 of them were hackers conspiring something bad. "Okay, I got it," Ye Xiu nodded his head. Immediately afterwards, Chen Yu sent off the technician. This type of service obviously wasn't free. After doing his work, the technician waited for Chen Yu to pay him. Ye Xiu really didn't feel anything different when he used the computer. He had Lord Grimm continue doing the Heavenly Domain challenge. On the road, he checked the level standings and found that he was still the only one who had reached level 50. He sighed and closed it. Chen Guo immediately ran back after paying the technician. She knew that for Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm, besides doing the Heavenly Domain challenge, there wasn't anything else to do. A level 50 unspecialized player wouldn't be able to gain any more experience whether he dungeoned, quested, or killed wild monsters. When she went over and looked, Ye Xiu was doing the challenge just as she expected. Yesterday, he had passed 5 tests. His efficiency made Chen Guo sigh in admiration. Before Ye Xiu came, in Happy Internet Cafe, passing 2 tests in a single day was enough to brag. For the Heavenly Domain challenge, many players glared at their computer screens with red eyes and wanted to smash their computers in frustration. Some studios offered services to complete the Heavenly Domain challenge and earned quite a profit that way. But these studios couldn't complete the challenge with ease either. Even they had the urge to smash their computers sometimes as they did their business. In the early days, the Heavenly Domain was truly a gathering of elite players. But nowadays, more and more players were able to enter the Heavenly Domain by luck or other methods. Regardless, the skill level of the players in the Heavenly Domain were definitely higher on average than players in normal servers. Not only was it difficult to complete the challenge, if you didn't have any skill, the harsh environment in the Heavenly Domain was even more rage-inducing than the challenge. A major difference between the Heavenly Domain and the normal servers was that player killing didn't have any penalties whatsoever. Normal servers had red names. Even though the penalties weren't so bad, it was still a status that restricted players. In the Heavenly Domain, though, there were no penalties for killing a player, and the losses for dying were much more severe as well. Because of this, one could easily imagine how chaotic the environment was. In such chaos, if you were a noob, you'd definitely be bullied around all day. If you didn't hurry and improve, you'd be cut down every time you walked out. The harsh environment of the Heavenly Domain caused many noobs to grow quickly and violently. While Chen Guo was thinking about all of this, Ye Xiu passed the 6th test. Chen Guo was just about to say something when someone nearby cried, "DMN." Chen Guo turned her head and saw that there was someone standing behind her. His face held a look of astonishment as he stared dumbly at Ye Xiu's screen. When Ye Xiu turned his head, this person regained his composure, but his expression of shock couldn't be wiped away. He stared with wide eyes as he said, "Brother, is this the Heavenly Domain challenge?" "Yes," Ye Xiu nodded his head. This couldn't be hidden. When the Heavenly Domain challenge was being done, there was a clear sign on the interface. It was obvious at a glance. This is too amazing. How many tries did it take you?" This person had clearly seen Ye Xiu finish the 6th test in one breath. He thought that Ye Xiu had experienced hundreds of failures before being able to clear it with such ease. "Many times, I lost count," Ye Xiu laughed. "But it doesn't matter how many times it took you. It's still very amazing. What test are you?" "I don't think I saw a time limit," this person said. "The 6th test. The 6th test. The 6th test," this person recalled. "The 6th test. The 6th test doesn't have a time limit, does it?" "It doesn't. No time limit," this person froze again. The 6th test was a test without fighting, but it was a more comprehensive test. The test had different types of terrain and obstacles. It required the player to use different movements in order to pass through it. When normal players did it, they did it step by step, cautiously and slowly. But Ye Xiu just passed it in a single breath without stopping. "Brother, what server are you in?" this person asked. "10th server. 10th server," the person said in shock. It's only been 2 months since the 10th server, you're already level 70. Nope, I'm level 50, I'm just starting early. Ye Xiu didn't dare say that he was going to complete the entire challenge at level 50. This brother's eyes kept on growing wider. If he got even more excited, Ye Xiu was afraid his eyes would pop out. Amazing, the person praised. Ha ha, Ye Xiu laughed. Brother, are you going to try the next test? This person was quite familiar with the quest chain and was able to guess what Ye Xiu was planning on doing from his character's movements. Yeah, Ye Xiu said. Do you mind if I watch? The person was quite polite. I don't mind. As a result, the person sat down where Tang Ru usually sat and watched Ye Xiu play. The 7th test was a battle with a boss and a mob of monsters. After a minute, the person's jaw had dropped and couldn't close. What is that? He was curious about the 1,000-chance umbrella. Silver weapon, Ye Xiu said. Silver, silver, silver weapon. After saying silver 2 times, he lowered his voice. He was quite considerate. If he had blurted out silver weapon, it would immediately gather a huge crowd. This had already happened once before. That time, many of the people in the crowd were 10th server players who had even added Lord Grimm as a friend. They could often be seen online too. These players obviously noticed Ye Xiu's rise in the 10th server. Those who still came to Happy Internet Cafe would pay their respects if they saw that Ye Xiu wasn't busy. Of course, these people didn't know of Ye Xiu's true identity. They just thought he was a very good player. In addition, due to the nature of working as a manager, he had a lot of time to play, so it made sense. After all, those who played in the 10th server were just normal players, so they wouldn't think too much of it. As for those more experienced players, they had been astonished by the silver weapon, but it was only a level 5 silver weapon, so they didn't pay too much attention to it. Because they were in different servers, they didn't know of Lord Grimm's fame in the 10th server. It was true that those 10th server players knew of it, and despite being in the same internet cafe, they played on their own and didn't really interact with one another. As a result, Ye Xiu was still left alone and didn't garner too much attention. This brother was more careful. He didn't blurt it out loud and gasp to himself. Besides the silver weapon, he had discovered something else during that 1 minute. Brother, you haven't changed classes yet. Yeah, I haven't. What's the reason for that? This brother didn't understand. Unspecialized, you haven't heard of it, Ye Xiu said. I know what an unspecialized is, but you. He clearly wasn't too experienced. He only understood that a character was unspecialized before level 20, but didn't know that long ago, unspecialized players were considered a class in glory. I'll level to 70 just like this. Ye Xiu said. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 414 Chapter 414. Everyone blanked out. Ye Xiu didn't stop with his progress as he chatted with the stranger, who never lifted his gaze from Ye Xiu's screen. During the first minute, he was shocked by Ye Xiu's character's weapon and class. During the second minute, he was astonished by Ye Xiu's amazing battle skills and maneuvers. However, the stranger's expression didn't change much the second time. He was already as amazed as he thought he could possibly be. Who would have thought that the person in front of him would have even more in store for him? Unbelievable, this is unbelievable, the stranger chanted under his breath while watching Ye Xiu killing a horde of monsters as easily as cutting grass. He soon realized that Ye Xiu's damage wasn't very good. However, this was rather normal considering that Lord Grimm was only level 50. It was clear proof of Ye Xiu's terrifying skill. Soon, the battle ended. The stranger stared in awe at the piles of corpses littered all over the map, and the full health bar of Ye Xiu's character. His face almost twitched in extreme shock. Incredible! He finally squeezed out a word of praise. But then the stranger immediately regretted it because the word came nowhere close to what he wished to say. Unfortunately, he couldn't find any other word to describe it. He found that not only could his face not express his awe accurately, but his vocabulary was the same as well. It was okay. Ye Xiu responded, a bit slow though. Of course, you're only level 50, the stranger blurted out. Upon seeing Ye Xiu leave the battleground, the stranger gathered up all of his courage and asked, "Brother, do you have time for a round in the arena?" Ye Xiu was startled. "I'm from the 8th server, my character's name is Ascending." The stranger introduced himself. "FCK me." Ye Xiu suddenly cried out, surprising both the stranger and Chen Guo. "What's wrong?" Ascending was terrified. Nothing, you go ahead and create a room, I'll be there soon," Ye Xiu quickly answered. Ascending jumped up and ran back to his computer. "Are you okay?" Chen Guo was still surprised about Ye Xiu's reaction just now. He was always calm and confident, so why did he suddenly curse a moment ago? Was Ascending someone very important? "I'm so stupid," Ye Xiu murmured. "I thought so." Chen Guo snickered. Ye Xiu cast a helpless glance at Chen Guo, who just found a rare opportunity to mock him. Then he continued, "I forgot that the arena is cross-server. Aren't I stupid for forgetting such a basic setup?" "What?" This time Chen Guo was startled. Ye Xiu shook his head, "and I was counting how many days it would take for the 10th server's players to reach level 50. Tusk. How come you never said anything?" Ye Xiu asked Chen Guo. "I can be stupid too, can't I?" Chen Guo was a bit depressed. The arena being cross-server was basic knowledge among the players. In the end, the top-tier professional player forgot about. Chen Guo, an experienced player who had played the game for 5 years, also forgot about it. Su Cheng apparently forgot as well. When the three of them were together during New Year's holiday to play the game, Ye Xiu had mentioned this problem. In conclusion, Su Cheng didn't see anything wrong and spent her time with Ye Xiu and Chen Guo worrying stupidly. Did everyone just blank out? Chen Guo pondered. Ye Xiu had definitely blanked out, that was obvious. But for she and Su Cheng to blank out on the exact same issue simultaneously, that was a bit questionable. This was a very basic rule, and there was absolutely no reason for all of them to have forgotten about it. Or could it have been because of something else? Such as an unwavering trust in Ye Xiu from the both of them. Perhaps it was simply because he said it. The two girls believed it without a second thought. Perhaps it was because he was worried about the issue, so they went along with it and worried about it with him. They had only tried to think up a solution to the problem, but never bothered to check if the problem itself actually existed. Was this guy actually that reliable? Chen Guo was having a bad time believing that this listless guy would actually gain her trust. It's probably because of his identity. Chen Guo answered her own question weakly. On the other side, Ye Xiu was already rushing to the arena. Then Ascending darted back, "Brother, I got the room. Fixed field, Arena 5. Room 4689. The password is PAI." "PAI? What does that mean?" Chen Guo was interested in the odd password. Ascending turned and glanced at Chen Guo. "Look at the keyboard." Chen Guo looked down. From the right upper corner to the left of the keyboard, the first few keys were PAI. "Fixed field, that's unnecessary. Let's go to the regular arena." Ye Xiu didn't pay any attention to the password, but he was unhappy about the mode. Ascending was stunned. "Quest requirement." Ye Xiu replied weakly. This wasn't a good explanation at all. A level 50 challenging a level 70 without being in the fixed field could easily be misunderstood as contempt against the opponent. Ye Xiu had no disrespect whatsoever against Ascending. It was just that victories in the fixed field didn't count, so it would be useless for the Heavenly Domain challenge. Then again, Ye Xiu didn't need this particular victory, so if Ascending insisted, Ye Xiu would be fine with doing it in fixed field. Ascending didn't mind at all though. "Wait a sec." He nodded and dashed back. In a moment, he got a new room in the regular arena and raced back to tell Ye Xiu. After seeing Ye Xiu's Lord Grim enter the room successfully, Ascending sprinted back to his own computer to start the match. Ascending was a level 70 mechanic and seemed to be PvP veteran. He rushed forward purposefully the moment the match started. Ye Xiu didn't hold back at all. He had refused a match in the fixed field. If he still held back, that would be truly disrespectful towards ascending. As a result, Ye Xiu attacked fiercely and decisively ended the match in 1 minute and 14 seconds. The match time was a bit longer than usual as expected. 20 levels of level suppression and 20 levels of equipment difference were all too real. Even if Ye Xiu could guarantee that he hit ascending with every attack, the actual damage would still be reduced significantly. Still, from a normal player's point of view, this was an extremely one-sided match. After the first hit from Ye Xiu, ascending never even got any chance to retaliate until his character died. Hey, was that necessary? Aren't you going a bit too harsh on him? Chen Guo couldn't stand to watch. I was worried that he would think I belittled him by refusing a match in the fixed field, so I thought I'd show him that I really am much better than he is. Ye Xiu explained. Awesome. Just as Ye Xiu finished his sentence, Ascending sent him a comment. Ye Xiu's hands hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to reply but couldn't find anything to say. The usual, "you're not half bad either," wouldn't work at all. Ascending lost this match so completely that Ye Xiu could find nothing to praise him with. If Ye Xiu were to applaud Ascending's skills, the courtesy would have been so overly untruthful that it would just sound like mockery. After a few moments of thought, Ye Xiu settled on using a smiley face as a reply. "Shall we try again?" Ascending asked carefully. His diction changed this time. He used try after realizing that he might not even get the slightest chance to attack at all. Okay. Ye Xiu agreed and the two started a second round. Ye Xiu already showed Ascending his true level of skills, so he went easy on Ascending. This time, Ascending lost at the 1 minute and 30-second mark. That was really awesome. Ascending messaged again. This time he didn't lose as miserably as last time, but the match was still one-sided. It was okay. Ye Xiu was rather modest. "Sorry for the trouble," Ascending texted again. No more. Nah, I can't beat you. The difference between us is too great. I need a long time of practice to reach your level," Ascending explained. "Good luck." Ye Xiu ended the conversation and both of them left the room. Ye Xiu turned around and spoke to Chen Guo. "See, a smart guy who actually knows the difference. The smart guy is back." Chen Guo saw Ascending running back when she lifted her head. "If you don't mind, could I have your contact info? If there's another chance, I'd like to challenge you again," Ascending asked humbly. "Are you in the heavenly domain?" Ye Xiu asked. I'll be there soon. We'll meet then," Ye Xiu clarified. Oh, okay," Ascending nodded. He looked at Ye Xiu and Chen Guo and added embarrassedly, "Excuse me." Then he ran back to his own computer again. Heavenly domain. Ye Xiu turned to look at Chen Guo. His clenched fist showed his determination. Ye Xiu paid no attention to the little episode of Ascending. As a pro player, meeting another player was nothing special at all. He had gotten used to it a long time ago. "Hurry up," Chen Guo answered. "While I'm still here, I might as well get a few matches done." Ye Xiu was still in the arena. He started to enter rooms randomly in search of a suitable match. The regular arena had two types, free field and level field. Because Lord Grimm and Ascending had a 20-level gap and it wasn't in the level field to cover such a huge level gap, Lord Grimm and Ascending finished their match in the free field. In the free field, levels didn't matter. However, Ye Xiu couldn't pick on players whose level was lower than his. Thus, after changing the setting on the level limit for entering rooms, he started his conquest. A conquest without any resistance. Ye Xiu's skills ensured that he could easily defeat any player, with or without the 20 levels of level gap. In the free field, high-level players were primarily picking on the low-level players. If a player really wanted a challenge, he or she would go to level limit type arena. In the end, tons of bullies lost miserably in front of Ye Xiu. The 20 levels of difference in levels and equipments were virtually non-existent. If Glory wasn't known for its clean gaming environment, a lot of people would suspect that he was hacking. Still, there were still a large number of people who found this very suspicious. The biggest proof was that strange weapon. It was complete mystery to them. What kind of weapon would change its shape every other second? Would actually having the hack make one that dominant? While Ye Xiu swept through the arena, his character's name showed up again and again on the official report forum. In the discussion forum for PvP, there were mentions of him everywhere. Lord Grimm's fame had finally spread outside of the 10th server and into the entirety of Glory. As for Ye Xiu, he saw nothing but the waving hand of the heavenly domain as he counted his victories. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 415, Chapter 415. Sensation, after realizing that the issue of the arena part of the challenge wasn't actually an issue. Ye Xiu spent the entire day playing in the arena. In the arena section of the official forums, many discussions were being held concerning Lord Grimm. More and more posts were created as the day went on, and quite a few posts were repeated throughout the day. At the same time, there were just as many reports being made in the report section of the forums. Lord Grimm was hacking. Quite a lot of players believed this was true due to three main reasons. 1. There was a 20-level difference in levels and equipment, yet he was still crushing his opponents like it was nothing. 2. The weapon in his hands could change forms. This was absolutely unprecedented. He definitely wasn't switching to different weapons either. Third, according to the players who were defeated by him, they had been comboed from start to finish. He was being even more precise than machines. Any one of the reasons above was enough to make a player doubtful, let alone Lord Grimm having all three. This was something Ye Xiu didn't know about. He was only aware that getting into rooms was becoming easier and easier, so much so that people were now inviting him into their rooms. Moreover, the players who were crushed by him were quite stubborn. They would often have to be crushed 4 or 5 times before reluctantly giving up. Lord Grimm's fame exploded. The 10th server players were all excited seeing this. Very soon, several 10th server players who had joined the discussion listed out Lord Grimm's achievements in the 10th server. As a result, there were now more suspicious areas that Lord Grimm could be reported for. But soon afterwards, the response from the official company caused an even greater commotion from the players. In the report section, the officials directly released a stickied post telling everyone who reported Lord Grimm for hacking that, after a careful investigation, Lord Grimm was not found to have violated any rules. The officials asked players to stop sending in further reports on Lord Grimm. A warning would be issued for the first offense. A temporary ban would be issued for the second offense. Glory's report department had a respectable reputation. 1 is 1, 2 is 2. They were trustworthy and fair. Their handling of Lord Grimm's reports conformed with their consistent style. This wasn't why the players were in such an uproar, though. They were in an uproar because if the report department officially declared that there was no problem, then there really were no problems with Lord Grimm. This meant that Lord Grimm ignoring the 20-level gap and comboing everyone from start to finish was all skill. As for that unheard-of weapon, if it was unheard of, then it was obviously a silver weapon. This guy actually had a silver weapon. Discussions concerning Lord Grimm began to spread. They were no longer limited to the arena. As long as it was a section in the forums, there would be posts on Lord Grimm. Ye Xiu finally grew aware of this. There was one very obvious point that stood out. No matter where he went, the room would have spectators. More and more spectators joined each time. Several characters appeared over and over again. They were clearly following him. "You're popular," Chen Guo laughed. The two quickly thought of why there were so many spectators. Ye Xiu had clearly become famous in the arena. It would be weird if he didn't become famous. Chen Guo muttered. She had watched on the side for a long time, and towards the end, she became numb towards the matches. Ye Xiu wasn't fighting a match in the arena. He was practically hitting sandbags. Every time he fought, he would attack and then it would be over. After playing for the entire day, he hadn't lost a single time. No, using the word lose wouldn't be correct. He never experienced any sort of difficulty. As soon as Ye Xiu attacked, the match would be over. "You're not tired?" Chen Guo even asked this type of question. In her eyes, playing each match so fiercely and precisely must be tiring. "Tired? Why would I be tired?" Ye Xiu asked back. "Fighting each match like that," Chen Guo said. She didn't know how to describe it. "Oh, it's nothing. It's very relaxing," Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo realized that in Ye Xiu's eyes, these players weren't opponents but ants. Those combos were the same as stepping on an ant. It was extremely easy for him, but the problem was that the ants couldn't fight back. As a result, the ants cried how strong, how scary. The god lifted his foot up again and crushed the crying ant. Videos of the god crushing ants began to appear, one after the other. The players were all very excited. Such a prominent character hadn't appeared in glory for a long time. Those who appeared were quickly noticed by the clubs and then pulled into the team to begin their career as pro players. Some of them were quickly washed out. Some worked hard to stand firm in the pro scene. Some became true top-tier players in glory. And Lord Grimm, what would happen to him? There was no need to doubt his skill, right? All of the experienced players confirmed this when they watched the videos. He was able to easily crush high-leveled experts one after the other, even with a 20-level disparity. In addition, he even had his own self-made silver weapon. Any of those points would be enough to make clubs throw out their olive branches. Some people even began guessing which team Lord Grimm would join. Some people even began analyzing which team Lord Grimm would fit the best with. After studying his class, discovering that none of his opponents was lower leveled than him, and noticing that he had played in the arena for a full day, the players quickly concluded that he was doing the Heavenly Domain Challenge. "He's a talent," the players all sighed. "He'll quickly become a pro player," everyone thought. No one questioned that the player was already a pro player because no pro player had the free time to run to the game, do the Heavenly Domain Challenge, and bully a bunch of normal players all day. The day quickly passed. The next day came and players went to the websites for all the big teams to see if there was any news of Lord Grimm being scouted. However, there was no news. Afterwards, they went into all the big glory forums and discovered that Lord Grimm was still an extremely hot topic. A few reporters even tried to interview him by finding him in-game, but none of them succeeded. All of the gossip was focused on Lord Grimm. Every time a gossiper spoke, Lord Grimm would always be mentioned. This was only the first day too. The second day, the third day, the fourth day, day after day passed. Lord Grimm's path didn't change. Every day, people would chase after him in the arena to watch him fight. Some even took the initiative to go into battle. All of them ended in defeat. Being crushed by Lord Grimm became an event in glory after the Spring Festival. Ye Xiu obviously knew of this after so much activity in the past few days, but he didn't care. He just wanted to complete the Heavenly Domain Challenge. If people wanted to line up and fight him, then that was great. One day, Huang Xiaoshen's low-leveled account, Flowing Tree, logged into the game and cried a bunch. "FCK your sister. You're Peking with so many people, but you don't have time to fight one round with me." Huang Xiaoshen had asked to fight him several times, but the fight never happened. He resented it greatly. "It's for a quest," Ye Xiu replied. He didn't remember ever seeing Troubling Rain giving him an invite, but even if he had, Ye Xiu definitely would have refused. Fighting with Huang Xiaoshen wouldn't be a 1 or 2 minute match, and he might not even win either. It would simply be a waste of time. "I'll wait until you get to the Heavenly Domain." "You wait," Huang Xiaoshen said fiercely. Ye Xiu replied with a cool face and then ignored him. The sudden appearance of a prominent character gave glory players a lot to talk about. The atmosphere seemed to be even more lively than during the Spring Festival event. Some people even bought a 10th server account card and ran to the 10th server to personally watch. There were clearly many bored players, but there was one thing players couldn't understand. They were already clear on what Lord Grimm was capable of, so why hadn't any clubs invited Lord Grimm over? Every old veteran player had their own team they supported. Quite a few even began contacting the clubs recommending him. The clubs didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The clubs weren't as stupid and slow as the players thought. Early in the first day, they had all received reports. The club system had a system similar to those in basketball and football. There were scouts, whether they were part-time or full-time, that went to dig out potential talents. Now that there was a talent that just directly appeared in front of them, not seeing him would be too stupid. It could be said that on the first day, every club had received several reports on Lord Grimm. A club had a managing department, a team, a guild, an equipment research department, scouts. They were split into many departments. Information among them could be shared or withheld. Lord Grimm was Ye Xiu. Most of the guilds knew. The teams also knew. But the other departments might not know of this. But in any case, once things got to this stage, with Lord Grimm being pushed in front of the clubs, this information was quickly shared to every department. The secret that Lord Grimm was Ye Xiu quickly became known to everyone in the club. As a result, the clubs had to give up on chasing after him. If he was Ye Xiu, then there was different concern. While the players were just having fun with this gossip, the clubs had to think of their interests and began seriously pondering over Ye Xiu's abrupt fame in the game. With rumors of Ye Xiu creating a team, the clubs all had a tacit mutual understanding not to let out the news that Lord Grimm was Ye Xiu. If the news leaked, it would be hard to say how many eyes would be enamored, how many would be looking forward to it, how many follow along. For the clubs, not stirring up trouble for Ye Xiu was already quite nice of them. They didn't have any reason to help Ye Xiu come back, though. Just how much can he do by himself? The clubs didn't dare look down on Ye Xiu, but they didn't think he could do much alone. This sort of online sensation in game could be achieved by any pro player. After all, pros were in a completely different world than normal players. Ye Xiu might be building up momentum through this sensation. They couldn't stop him, but they weren't going to help him. This was what the clubs all thought the King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 416 against the great hero as the team that kicked out Ye Xiu, Excellent Era, felt uneasy. At the first club meeting of the year, this issue was presented at the table for discussion. This was a club meeting, so the participants were the heads of the different departments. For the team, both the captain and vice-captain, Sun Xiang and Liu Hao, were present. For the guild, Chen Yehui was present. Apart from them, there were the heads of the research department, the logistics department, the scouting department, the public relations department. As one of the powerhouses in Glory Esports history, Excellent Era had a well-developed and organized infrastructure. This wasn't the only issue that would be discussed at the meeting. The New Year's had just passed, so they started off with good news of their business. It was only until the end of the meeting did they begin talking about Lord Grimm, who had swept the Glory community in a storm these past few days. Chen Yehui glanced uneasily at Liu Hao. Liu Hao had excellent acting skills and looked as if this was news to him. Chen Yehui couldn't pretend he didn't know. These were in-game matters, and the relationship between Ye Xiu and Excellent Era couldn't be erased. If he hadn't noticed this, he would probably lose his job. Luckily, he had given several believable reports to the director about in-game matters and Lord Grimm before. Chen Yehui was only worried that the club would officially order him to suppress Ye Xiu. He truly didn't have any confidence he could accomplish such a task. As a result, in the meeting, when the director asked him to explain the Lord Grimm and 10th server situation, he stressed how difficult it was to resist Ye Xiu in the game. Whether it was Blue Brook Guild, Tyrannical Ambition, or Herb Garden, all of them had been toyed with by Ye Xiu. As for Excellent Dynasty, under his wise lead, the guild maintained a good distance away from him from the very start, so they hadn't suffered too many losses. However, because of his disturbance, all of the top guilds were having trouble developing in the 10th server. Excellent Dynasty was no exception. The director wrinkled his brows at Chen Yehui's conclusion. Their research in the 10th server was an important step in Excellent Era's plan to rise back to the top, but they had encountered a large obstacle. This obstacle was something they had created too. If they hadn't kicked Ye Xiu out of the team, Ye Xiu wouldn't have ran to the game. If Ye Xiu hadn't run to the game, with Excellent Dynasty's huge investment into the 10th server, they would have easily gained the upper hand over the other guilds in the 10th server. HMPH, no matter how you look at it, he's still a pro god. Running to the game and making a name for himself is too shameful as a pro. After hearing Chen Yehui's description of Ye Xiu's might in the 10th server, Sun Xiang gave a very rude remark. That's true, but for our guild, such an opponent is truly formidable. Chen Yehui obviously didn't mind puffing up Ye Xiu's strength. It would be good for him if Sun Xiang rushed into the game in anger and dueled Ye Xiu. Even though he knew that the club probably wouldn't permit it with his rash, young behavior, he might just do it in private, similar to what Liu Hao did. Speaking of Liu Hao, after the previous discussion, he didn't make any more movements. Liu Hao said that he would help him deal with Ye Xiu, but made no such moves. Chen Yehui wasn't happy when he thought of this. "What's the current situation for the guild?" the director asked. "It's pretty much the same as the other guilds. Because of Ye Xiu's strength, he's practically monopolized the dungeon records. To the players in the 10th server, Lord Grimm and the guild he created is the #1 in the server. Sigh. Chen Guo let out a sigh. The situation's a bit complicated. For now, we've moved our troops and resources to the heavenly domain. In the 10th server, we'll maintain our characters' levels and wait to see if there's any turn for the better. Ye Xiu's character is unspecialized, and he had a silver weapon." "Is that correct?" the director asked. "That's correct. Is there any information on the silver weapon?" The director's gaze shifted to the head of Excellent Era's research department, Qin Yu. Qin Yu's expression was quite serious. After thinking carefully for a good while, he began. "It's quite obvious what this silver weapon is. It was specially created for an unspecialized player. The design for the different weapon forms is extremely elaborate. The weapon completely solves the issue with an unspecialized needing to constantly switch weapons. Just from this, it's clear that this weapon is the work of a genius. We've studied it for several days, but we haven't figured anything substantial out yet. This silver weapon is something that has never been done before, so there's no way for us to extrapolate what its stats are. In terms of glory, Qin Yu was an extremely experienced player. It wasn't possible for someone without a good understanding of the game, nor plenty of experience, to become a part of the research department. The responsibility of the research department was studying equipment and to upgrade equipment. But for an unspecialized, this was a play style that had already faded away before the creation of the Pro Alliance, so the research department didn't have much information on unspecialized players. As a result, Qin Yu really couldn't make too much of an evaluation towards this silver weapon. He could only admit that their department had no idea where to start with this weapon. "Where did Ye Xiu get such a silver weapon? Has he ever talked about this with you?" the director asked. "This? I don't think so." Qin Yu wasn't too sure. Ye Xiu was Excellent Era's captain for 7 years and had communicated with the research department many times. For one Autumn Leaf's silver weapon, Evil Annihilation, it could be said that without them, it wouldn't have evolved to such a level. Amongst the countless times they had talked, Qin Yu really couldn't remember them ever talking about this. "Then can you be certain that none of the other clubs made this?" the director asked. "I'm certain of that." Qin Yu nodded his head. There were quite a few people at the meeting. Right now, the majority of them were silent. In reality, many of them didn't really know about the inside information on Ye Xiu's retirement. They had no say in the team's personnel. But as a branch of the club, they had heard quite a few rumors about Ye Xiu and the club. The director's attitude towards the issue of Ye Xiu was clearly a type of vigilant attitude. From this, they were able to get a general feel for the situation. In any case, they wouldn't say too much. How to deal with Ye Xiu wasn't really their department's matters. Keep an eye on Ye Xiu's movements. The director turned his head to warn Chen Yehui. I understand. The other guilds probably know of his identity too, right? The director asked. Yes, Chen Yehui nodded his head. What are their stances? Retreat, Chen Yehui smiled bitterly. Even tyrannical ambition, the director asked. Chen Yehui nodded his head. Is he really going to rise up so smoothly just like this? The director looked as if he couldn't sit still, but quickly realized his current stance. No matter how it was said, Ye Xiu was one of excellent era's great heroes. His current attitude wasn't suitable to be displayed in front of everyone. At the very least, his expression was making the others tremble in fear. After regaining his composure, he slowly said, the rumors are saying that Ye Xiu is planning on creating his own team. If that's the case, even though he's certainly a person that will go down in the history of our team, he'll also become our opponent. We hope that he'll succeed, but as an opponent, we know better than anyone else how terrifying he is. We have to make proper preparations for him. He was clearly trying to save the situation from before. After saying this, the director concluded the meeting. Then, he quietly had the team and guild members stay. These were the people who were going to be at the front lines for dealing with Ye Xiu. In the game, Lord Grimm wasn't hacking. This was something the officials had confirmed. The players couldn't understand why such a skilled player wouldn't be fought for by the clubs and could only guess why. After several days of fighting in the arena, Ye Xiu had finally completed all the arena portion of the Heavenly Domain Challenge. Even though there were a lot of requirements such as how many wins in a row, winning in a short amount of time, winning with lots of health left. Apart from the number of wins needed, the other requirements were just like the other tests. For example, for winning several matches in a row, once it was completed, it would change from 5 wins in a row to 10 wins in a row and so on. For health, the first test required a win at 50% health left. After this was done, it would become 60%, then 70%, all the way until winning with no health lost. Relatively speaking, the health part of the test was easy. After all, it could be accomplished through luck after many tries. Most players were stuck on the winning several matches in a row part. Once a match was lost, all previous progress would be reset. Countless players stamped their feet in frustration at this part. Later, this part became a type of business. Quite a few players relied on intentionally losing to players in order to gain a profit from helping others complete the challenge. Because of this type of cheating, the rules were constantly being revised, but players would always find some sort of loophole around it. The two sides fought over this ever since the beginning, and it was still going on. As for Ye Xiu, this wasn't a problem. How many times he won was how many times in a row he won. It didn't matter if the test required 5 wins in a row or 20 wins in a row. He would finish it on his first try. Health, time, etc. Ye Xiu finished each test on his first try. Due to the many spectators watching, Lord Grimm had become known as the most efficient player to complete the arena part of the Heavenly Challenge. The Heavenly Challenge was what the players called the Heavenly Domain Challenge. They were only sad that they couldn't record or watch the quest chain part of the challenge. All of Lord Grimm's fighting in the arena had been completely recorded by the players, though the King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 417. Chapter 417. The level 50 conflict complete. Not just Ye Xiu. All of the players who were paying attention to Lord Grimm knew that he had already finished the arena portion of the Heavenly Challenge. It wasn't that the players accurately counted every one of his wins, but rather, the number of wins a character had in the arena could be easily searched by looking at the character's info. After so many days of watching Lord Grimm, besides the silver weapon, they knew of all his equipment from head to toe. The number of wins that Lord Grimm had in the arena could be seen on his character info page. However, there was no way for them to know how much of the quest chain he had completed. But the players in the heavenly domain had already made their preparations. They were ready at any moment to pounce on Lord Grimm, the first level 50 character to reach the heavenly domain. It was true that the quest chain was difficult, but after seeing Lord Grimm's performance in the arena, the players were certain that the quest chain wasn't a problem for him. It was only a matter of time. The players weren't wrong. It really was just a matter of time. The time it would be quite long, though. Chen Guo personally watched as Ye Xiu took a whole 3 hours to defeat a boss. There was nothing that could be done about it. This boss had a passive that let him recover health automatically. Lord Grimm's damage output was very weak because of his level and equipment. With this automatic healing reducing the damage even further, he could slowly whittle it down. He couldn't make mistakes either because a moment of rest would let the boss heal up a bit and destroy some of his previous efforts. During this battle, Chen Guo was able to witness Ye Xiu's endurance. For this fight, Ye Xiu had Lord Grimm carry a huge amount of mana potions. Once the mana pool hit 10%, he would begin giving Lord Grimm mana potions to drink. Some of these mana potions were instant recovery ones, which were used at the appropriate times. Throughout the long 3-hour battle, Lord Grimm was able to keep his mana pool up. Of course, this also had to do with Ye Xiu's control over his skills. If not with an unspecialized character's arsenal of 120 kills, if he just randomly threw one after the other out, it wouldn't matter how many potions he brought. Consuming potions had a cooldown too. This amount of time had to be calculated when using skills. If potions didn't have cooldowns, then there wouldn't be a need for learning how to endure. Just making sure enough potions were prepared would be enough. This 3-hour battle was, without a doubt, the most difficult test for Ye Xiu. After he finished this fight, he couldn't hide his exhaustion. This was because he couldn't relax at all during the battle. A single minute of slack could require 2 minutes to make up for it. Ye Xiu was truly like a machine during this and conducted the battle steadily and precisely for 3 whole hours. Even Tang Ru, someone who refused to admit defeat, fell silent after watching the battle. Tang Ru had come back on the 9th day of the Spring Festival and quickly reached level 50 as well. Moreover, she was also trying the Heavenly Domain Challenge. Tang Ru was actually quite familiar with the challenge. In the past, she had helped Chen Guo finish the challenge and had once studied it earnestly. For the sections that tested for a player's mechanics, even though every scenario was random, Tang Ru had a good mechanical foundation. She might not be as precise and quick as Ye Xiu, but passing those sections wasn't a problem. In the arena, Tang Ru also tried challenging it at level 50, but she was far from being as clean and decisive as Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu knew very well how significant the 20-level suppression was. Tang Ru didn't have that experience. When she used a falling flower palm, the level suppression made it so that the opponent would barely be knocked back. The opponent would then use a powerful skill as he was being pushed back. It wouldn't be an instant kill, but it made it very difficult for Tang Ru. She was far from Ye Xiu beating his opponent so easily. However, with Tang Ru's mechanical skill, she was probably be considered near unbeatable to playing characters at the same level as her. The 20-level suppression had caught her unprepared in the beginning, but after slowly adapting to it, she was gradually doing better and better. The part of the test that required several wins in a row made her want to cough blood, though. After all, Tang Ru wasn't as knowledgeable as Ye Xiu. When she bumped into a strong opponent, she would sometimes capsize and have to start all over again. Because of Tang Ru's personality, she refused to duck away and instead continued to challenge it. Ye Xiu and Chen Guo knew of her stubbornness and were too lazy to try and advise her otherwise. But today, after seeing Ye Xiu's bitter 3-hour battle, Tang Ru fell silent. After all, she was no longer a noob like before. She completely understood how difficult the battle was. She knew that the key part of the battle was the ability to endure. This was something she had learned from Ye Xiu before, but there was no way she was good enough to last 3 hours like Ye Xiu. And if she couldn't do this, she would run out of mana. Without mana, the damage output from a level 50's normal attacks compared to the boss's automatic health recovery would only end in tragedy. Perhaps she could do it if Ye Xiu was on the side giving her pointers, but this wasn't what Tang Ru wanted. After staring blankly for a good while, she finally spoke. "That part looks very hard. I probably can't pass it." "Yeah," Ye Xiu nodded his head. Thus, Tang Ru looked at her soft mist and saw that she would be stuck on that part of the quest chain. Giving up halfway was something that made her heart hurt very much, but she clearly knew that the obstacle wasn't something she could clear. Continuing to try stubbornly would be too unwise. Should she first go to the dungeon and practice her endurance? Tang Ru thought of the training program Ye Xiu had devised for this. She turned her character around and actually planned on heading to the dungeon. "Where are you going?" Ye Xiu saw her character move and suddenly asked. "I'm going to try my endurance capability," Tang Ru said. "There's no need to fix this, not at this moment." Ye Xiu bitterly laughed. "Just pay attention when you practice and you'll be fine. Improving is a gradual process. It's not worth it paying so much effort just for this obstacle." Tang Ru's soft mist continued to run in the direction of the dungeon as if she hadn't heard what Ye Xiu said. But when she was about to arrive, she suddenly nodded her head. "True. The obstacle isn't that important. I'm going to level while improving." After saying this, she checked the potions she had in her inventory and rushed into the level 50 dungeon. There were many level 50 dungeons. This was because level 50 had been the level cap for 3 years. Leveling to 50 wasn't that difficult. How was the company supposed to keep the players interested? By giving players all sorts of things to do at level 50. It could be said that in Glory, players could only truly experience the joy of the game after reaching the max level. After this, as the level cap increased, more high-level dungeons appeared, but the level 50 range still had many classic dungeons or dangerous scenarios that didn't need to be closed. Once a player reached level 50, there were many wild maps and dungeons to choose from. The top guilds would naturally have more places to compete at. However, there were only a few characters that had reached level 50. At level 50, the dungeons wouldn't only be 5-player dungeons. There were 10-player ones, 20-player ones, even large-scale 50-player ones. Because there weren't enough characters in order to run 10-player and up dungeons, the top guilds needed to party together. The top guilds currently encountered quite a few complications, mostly because of the level gap. The level 50 dungeons used to be the highest level dungeons, so there weren't any level ranges. Level 50 dungeons could only be entered at level 50 and above. But just like with the level ranges, lower-leveled players couldn't enter the dungeon and higher-leveled teams couldn't set records. Because of this, only having level 50 as the level range was a bit awkward. Right now, it wasn't possible for the guilds to form a 50-player level 50 dungeon team. By the time they could form such a large team, if the first string elites continued to level, when the other guild members arrived, they would already be past level 50 and wouldn't be able to compete for the dungeon record. The first string elites were the elites of their guilds. It was quite a problem. Should they continue to level or wait for everyone to reach level 50 and have a large team to advance together? The top guilds began discussing this, and from level 50 onwards, the same problem would occur at level 55, 60, 65. These levels were all once the level cap and would all have one-level range restriction dungeons as well. At the same time, 5-player dungeons wouldn't be cared for too much. Whether it was to show the guild's strength or for good equipment and materials, the larger the dungeon restriction the better. 7 or 8-player elite teams could only strut around small dungeons. What was the point in that? Even worse, they couldn't even show their strength in small dungeons. Wasn't their Lord Grimm's team still? But for large dungeons, they believed that Lord Grimm wouldn't be able to compete with them. Guild Happy had only just been created. Apart from the 5-player team, everyone else was just a bunch of noobs. How could they compete with the experienced teams of the top guilds? How should they continue? The top guilds obviously wouldn't discuss this with each other. They planned on their own. And with Lord Grimm's recent upsurge of fame, it seemed like he was about to reach the heavenly domain. So he's coming. In the heavenly domain, the top guilds had been watching Lord Grimm attentively long ago. In particular, with how much of an uproar he had created with his heavenly domain challenge, even the clubs had noticed him. After knowing of his identity, no one would dare look down on him any more. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 418 Chapter 418 Entering the heavenly domain was an exciting event for glory players. You have to look at it from Chen Guo's perspective. Choose a good day, relax, take a bath, pay your respects to those gods of luck, and then enter the heavenly domain. But for Ye Xiu, after completing the quest chain, he didn't look excited at all. He just strolled right into the heavenly domain. Ye Xiu might be calm, but the world wasn't. Getting into the heavenly domain was a major event. The system would publicly announce it. It would be announced to the 10th server as well as the heavenly domain. This was the first announcement of this kind for the 10th server, and another one wasn't going to happen anytime soon. But because the 10th server was full of new players, many of them didn't really know about the difficulty of the challenge, so they weren't too shocked. In their eyes, it was just another announcement about Lord Grimm. But for the heavenly domain, their response was enormous. Since the character entering the heavenly domain was from the 10th server, the announcement would naturally make it clear which server the character came from. 10th server. These two words dazzled as brightly as the name, Lord Grimm. The old birds of the heavenly domain obviously knew that the 10th server had just opened for 2 months and knew what level they were at. Entering the heavenly domain at this time was definitely a record. Lord Grimm's fame these days was already great enough. Most of them had already prepared for this, so they weren't surprised. However, there were always a few slow ones. They weren't aware of Lord Grimm and went crazy after seeing that a 10th server player had entered the heavenly domain. The instant that Ye Xiu stepped into the heavenly domain, he received who knew how many system notifications. The excited heavenly domain players had been waiting for this famous player to arrive for several days already. As soon as they saw the announcement, many of them immediately sent a friend invite to pay their respects, trying to pull him in, and for all sorts of other reasons. No matter how friendly Ye Xiu was, it wasn't possible to answer all of them. The heavenly domain had players from all of the 9 previous servers. The total population surpassed that of a single server. Everyone knew of Lord Grimm because of his recent popularity, so the number of friend invites sent had to be a record. Accepting or rejecting the invites one by one could only be done by a machine. Ignoring these invites, Ye Xiu first took a look at where Lord Grimm was located and confirmed his coordinates. In the game, entering the heavenly domain looked like a teleport, but in reality, the servers were doing a calculation. There was no set starting position when going into the heavenly domain. But because the heavenly domain was created on year 5 of the game, the level cap had been level 55 at that time. The level 55 and up areas hadn't been created yet, so the random teleport location to the heavenly domain was limited to within the level 55 areas. Ye Xiu checked his coordinates and looked around him to get a general understanding of where he was. Even though he was in a level 55 area, and most players in the heavenly domain were level 70, it didn't mean that the area was empty. The majority of low-level equipment, apart from those with special effects that had a bit of value, weren't valuable to level 70 players. However, materials didn't have levels. Whether it was a piece of self-made equipment using an equipment editor or an in-game piece of crafted equipment, they often used a few pieces of low-level materials. Moreover, the lower the level of the material, the greater the amount of material was needed. As a result, even for level 55 areas, there were still quite a few players wandering around. Ye Xiu didn't seek for these yet. Leveling was still his main goal. However, an only level 50 Lord Grimm couldn't even enter the heavenly domain dungeons. He couldn't even do any quests. This was also because of his level. Ye Xiu could only grind it out for these 5 levels, and these monsters were also higher leveled. Of course, a monster that was 5 levels higher wasn't a problem for Ye Xiu. However, in the heavenly domain, the dangers were never the NPCs but the players. In the heavenly domain, killing someone didn't need a reason. If you wanted to kill, then go ahead. It was just that chaotic. It could be said that the heavenly domain and the normal server were almost 2 different games. One was more PvP-oriented, the other more PvE-oriented. Of course, the players could choose and the game wouldn't force the choice. Moreover, in order to maintain the fun for those who didn't like the heavenly domain, they didn't stop releasing post-game content in the normal servers either. As a result, there was also a large amount of players who didn't like the heavenly domain and stayed nice and safe in the normal servers to have fun. But no matter the case, the heavenly domain would always be a sort of attraction. Here, the materials and equipment were better than those in the normal servers. No matter what content the game company released, that distance would always be maintained. Thus, quite a few players ran to the heavenly domain to get equipment and brought it back to the normal servers to show off their might. These types of players were naturally looked down on up to the point where players unanimously attacked them. The heavenly domain players looked down on them. The normal server players hated them. With the general hate for them, there were very few players of this type left. However, it wasn't possible to eradicate lowly people. The 10th server might not have anyone like this yet, but that was only because no one had reached the heavenly domain. In other servers, as long as one searched the forums, there would often be posts looking to suppress this type of people. Ye Xiu urgently needed more levels, so after understanding where he was, he immediately began training. It was true that level 55 areas weren't empty, but they weren't too populated either. Ye Xiu also knew how famous his Lord Grimm was right now, so he didn't want too many people watching him. He took great pains to avoid others and found a place where no one was at to peacefully level. Just as he began, he suddenly noticed that there were people coming over from a certain direction. Ye Xiu didn't care too much in the beginning, but he soon realized that they were heading directly towards his position. He immediately took up his guard and hid behind a wall. Then he moved his head just a tiny bit out to see the 2 characters heading towards him. "Ha ha ha, how could you be so scared?" Chen Guo laughed. Ye Xiu turned his head and looked at her. "I can't be careless. Trust me, it's nothing," Chen Guo said. "How do you know?" Ye Xiu said. He glanced at Chen Guo's screen and went speechless. Sure enough, it was nothing, because among those 2 players was Chen Guo's chasing haze. The 2 had finally met each other in game. Chen Guo was still a bit excited. No matter the case, she was still meeting up with one of the gods she respected greatly, even if her respect for the god had gone down a lot after getting to know him better. "Why didn't you accept my friend invite?" Chen Guo felt quite good using such a tone towards a god. "How am I supposed to do that?" Ye Xiu said as he pointed at his friend invites. The system notifications filled up the screen as friend invites continued to be received. The scroll bar was becoming shorter and shorter by the second. The amount of friend invites he was getting kept increasing. "You're really popular." Chen Guo began to sweat. Ye Xiu was helpless. He cleared away all of the invites. "You add me first and then I'll accept," Chen Guo said, but after no response for a long time. She turned to look at Ye Xiu, who just sat there silently staring at his screen dumbly. Chen Guo looked at his screen and saw that his message window had stopped moving. The entire game had froze. Frozen. Frozen. Chen Guo had a hard time believing it. With today's technology, the word frozen had practically been forgotten by everyone. Today, Ye Xiu had just tried to clear his invites, but the game froze because of it. Just how many invites did he get? There were so many that his computer wasn't able to handle it in a short amount of time. Just wait a bit. Chen Guo was the owner of an internet cafe, so she still had some understanding of computers. It looked like a frozen computer, but it wasn't actually. The system was trying to clear all the invites and couldn't deal with his other commands. The clearing was still going underway. It was just that the clearing was using too many resources and seemed like it was ignoring the user. Ye Xiu could only wait. From Chen Guo's screen, she saw that Chen Guo's chasing haze had a battle mage called Forest Landscape next to her. Chen Guo had introduced this battle mage to Ye Xiu before. When she had left Excellent Dynasty, he had left with her. According to Chen Guo, his mechanics were just a bit worse than hers, which meant that he could really only play in-game. There wasn't much hope of him being good enough to join the team. "Look at this guy. His computer froze. Hold on a sec." Ye Xiu heard Chen Guo talk to Forest Landscape. "Does he know who I am?" Ye Xiu asked. "Yes, I told him." Chen Guo nodded her head. After leaving Excellent Dynasty with Chen Guo, the two had gotten quite close. Chen Guo had already told Forest Landscape of Ye Xiu in private. Forest Landscape was one of Ye Xiu's loyal fans and was obviously very shocked. He had hoped that he would one day meet with him. Today, after hearing that the god was coming to the heavenly domain, he immediately rushed over with Chen Guo. Once he heard that the god's character was frozen, his admiration for him increased even more. He really deserves to be called a god. How long had it been since he heard of a computer freezing from glory? God truly was extraordinary. Ye Xiu sat there for 5 minutes. His screen suddenly moved and all of those previous messages were cleared. But Ye Xiu quickly discovered that another flurry of notifications flashed. Players were still sending friend invites. How could Ye Xiu have such a tragedy occur again? He clicked rapidly and rejected all of the invites. Forest Landscape. In-game, Chen Guo introduced him to Ye Xiu. "Idle." Forest Landscape blurted out, not waiting for Chen Guo to introduce Ye Xiu. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 419, Chapter 419. It's not that simple in reality. Ye Xiu didn't actually have much experience interacting with his fans. The fact that he was an idol for so many years, even with him hiding the entire time, was simply a miracle. This type of player could only appear in esports. Facing an excited fan, Ye Xiu displayed his usual calmness and didn't appear tongue-tied. He acted as if his fan was a normal person and said a simple hi. "I'm a big fan of yours. You definitely have to return to the pro scene," Forest Landscape said. "Of course," Ye Xiu said. Forest Landscape didn't say anything afterwards. Even though he was facing an idol he admired, besides expressing his sincere support, he couldn't think of anything else to say. "What are you planning on doing now?" Chen Guo asked. Her voice could be heard twice, both in game and outside of the game, making it sound a bit weird. "I'm obviously going to level," Ye Xiu said. "Let's party up, I'll carry you." Chen Guo said and sent Ye Xiu a party invite. "You guys carrying me might not be faster than me leveling on my own," Ye Xiu said. "In a party, the individual would gain less experience per monster but would kill monsters faster. Alone, the individual would gain more experience per monster but would kill monsters slower. Leveling speed depended on how much experience was gained in a certain amount of time, so whether or not leveling alone or leveling with a party depended on the individual player's skill and the party's efficiency. Ye Xiu was a top god. There was no need to question his individual skill, which was why partying with others might not be faster for Ye Xiu. "But it won't be as tiring," Chen Guo said. It was true. Whether it was more efficient to level alone or level with a party depended on the circumstances. However, leveling with a party was certainly more relaxing than leveling alone. That was indisputable. Thinking of this, Ye Xiu didn't persist. Leveling alone was a bit faster, but it wasn't significant enough to argue over. As a result, the three partied up. They were just killing wild monsters, so there didn't need to be any leading or cooperation. It was simply see a monster, kill a monster. Chen Guo and Forest Landscape were veteran players and were bullying level 55 monsters as level 70 players. What pressure could there be? Ye Xiu might be low-leveled, but with his skill, saying that the monsters were being bullied would be being polite. There was naturally no suspense. Chen Guo and Forest Landscape had specially come here to help him level, and had already decided earlier that they would accompany him all the way to level 70. As a result, they didn't have anything else planned and stayed the entire time, killing level 55 monsters. The level 55 monsters obviously had some good drops, but because their levels were too high or too low, the chances were low. All it did was make the monotonous grinding slightly more interesting. Though for the two of them, how could accompanying their idol to level be boring? Doing this was very fun for them. After leveling for an hour, the three chatted for a bit. Suddenly, they saw Ye Xiu's Lord Grim stop and heard him say, "Someone's coming." "So what?" Chen Guo didn't understand. "They're heading towards us," Ye Xiu said. "Ha ha ha," Chen Guo laughed. "The heavenly domain really is more chaotic than normal servers, but what's there to be afraid of? Aren't you a god?" Forest Landscape didn't make known his position, but in his heart, he didn't think much of it either. Peking in the heavenly domain was very normal. Being ambushed by malicious players while leveling was something most players had experienced before. Not only that, but they were completely prepared for this to happen. While Ye Xiu's reaction was somewhat on the cautious side, Forest Landscape also thought that since he was a god, being so cautious for something small like this lowered his image of God a bit. But Ye Xiu didn't feel embarrassed at all. He only added, "It's different." "Different? What's different?" Chen Guo asked. "In the 10th server after Thousand Waves Lake, the top guilds stopped bothering us. Do you really think they would just come to peaceful terms with us so easily?" Ye Xiu said. "That, usually, not." Chen Guo understood the relationship between guilds quite well. If the guilds weren't fighting, it didn't mean that they were at peace with each other. It only meant that the two were equal in strength and didn't want to make any rash movements. If a guild had a problem, the other guilds wouldn't feel bad hitting it while it was down. The harder the guild was hit, the better. Was guild happy viewed in this way by the top guilds? Chen Guo already had a deep understanding of their situation. There was nothing they could do at Thousand Waves Lake, but saying that they had completely given up was something Chen Guo highly doubted. During those days, she had been helping Ye Xiu try to figure out what their plans were. It was just that later, the guilds showed no signs of movement. Ye Xiu didn't say anything either and just left it at that. Now that Ye Xiu brought it up, Chen Guo naturally associated the incoming players to the guilds and immediately said, "Are you worried that they would dispatch troops in the heavenly domain?" They were without a doubt waiting for this opportunity because if my character was to continue leveling, it would definitely have to enter the heavenly domain. But in the heavenly domain, I'm only level 50. They have a 20-level advantage and have an abundant number of troops. How could they let such a good opportunity go? Ye Xiu said. You had already expected this to happen. Yeah, Ye Xiu replied. Forest Landscape had heard of Ye Xiu's deeds in the 10th server from Chen Guo. Hearing the two of them talk, he had a good understanding of the situation. Thinking of the 20-level advantage and that every top guild was sending in their experts to kill him, his image of his god immediately went back up, and his respect even increased. He really deserved to be called a god. He pulled the wind wherever he went. Seeing those players heading straight for them, Ye Xiu stayed on alert, but he didn't panic. Because he had been on guard since the start, his leveling location had been chosen with this in mind. When they killed monsters, they went through a relatively open map, so that they would discover incoming players early. Seeing that there were only a total of 5 players heading towards them without any movements elsewhere, it probably wasn't an ambush. Even so, Ye Xiu had to be careful. After waiting for the 5 players to come closer and seeing the guild tags on top of their heads, the 3 were very surprised. The guild name on top of their heads wasn't one from a club. Because of how the game was set up, guilds could only have up to 10,000 players. However, a team definitely had more than 10,000 fans. As a result, the clubs would often set up branches in order to accept more fans. These branch guilds often had an obvious indicator to which club it belonged to. The guild name of the 5 players in front of them had nothing to do with any of the clubs, though. They're from Justice. Chen Guo called out the other party's guild name. Who are they? Ye Xiu asked. He could tell from Chen Guo's tone that they had some background to them. Heavenly Justice is a player guild. It's quite powerful. Their guild leader is called Lulan Slash. I heard that he comes from a rich family and used money to create his guild. Chen Guo explained to Ye Xiu. Ye Xiu hadn't paid attention to things in-game for a long time, so how could he know of these types of player guilds? Oh, Ye Xiu understood after hearing Chen Guo's introduction. No matter the online game, the company couldn't stop people from spending money in order to get stronger. Put some money in, and even if you didn't have the skill, you could get a fully body of powerful equipment, which would be more than enough to bully the majority of players. Calling someone who spent money to get stronger as someone with no skill was wrong. Those who were willing to spend money meant that they at least cared about the game. No matter how bad their mechanics were, they wouldn't be worse than a noob. This was why Ye Xiu didn't discriminate these types of players. It was the opposite for him, actually. He was quite envious of them. Using money to get equipment would save a lot of time. They shouldn't have anything to do with the guilds backed by clubs. Chen Guo continued. The players from Heavenly Justice soon arrived. They didn't even look at the monsters around them and headed straight for them. If they weren't looking for trouble, Ye Xiu could only guess what their goals were. There was nothing he could do. He was too popular. When they got closer, the 5 slowed down. But since they were in-game characters, their walking animation was set by the system, so their walking was very ordinary. However, the equipment on them was clearly extraordinary. With Ye Xiu's experience, he didn't even need to look up their info pages to know that their equipment were top quality. It had to be known that even in the pro scene, not every character had self-made equipment from head to toe. A lot of their equipment were orange equipment from in-game. For these types of equipment that could be found in-game, many players had them and definitely wouldn't be hard to get for someone with money. The equipment on these 5 players would definitely make any player in-game envious, especially the one in the middle with the id Lulan Slash. His character had a greatsword that even Ye Xiu recognized. This sword was called Sword Point. It was a level 65 orange weapon. Even though it wasn't a level 70 weapon, It was even used in the pro scene. This greatsword had a special effect, which had to do with the character's physical attack and the item hotkey. For every weapon put on a hotkey, the character would have a 10% increase in physical attack. In Glory, there were a total of 12 item hotkeys. In other words, if they were all weapons, the character could have a 120% increase in physical attack, which was very powerful. In theory, Swordpoint allowed for the highest physical attack in the game. The issue of how to self-make the special effect of Swordpoint had perplexed the research teams in clubs ever since the weapon had appeared in-game. Nam, can you update the glossary if there is new terms? Thanks, I can update the glossary after I finish checking a chapter or an arc. It would be a bit slow. Thought King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown Chapter 420 Chapter 420. I'm his boss. There were only things you couldn't think of, but there was nothing you couldn't make. This was one thing the game was proud of. It didn't matter if their words were just an exaggeration. It was indeed true. As long as you could find the item in the game, it was 100% possible that you could make it. This meant that Swordpoint's unique special effect could be added onto a silver weapon. However, even after many years of research, no one had found a way to do it. Swordpoint's unique special effect made it popular in the game and was considered as a top-tier weapon for swordsman classes. Because of its power, it was obviously a very rare drop. Lulen Slash had one, but he probably hadn't gotten it himself. That greatsword is called Swordpoint. You should know of it. It wasn't a secret that Lulen Slash possessed Swordpoint. Chen Guo was still introducing him to Ye Xiu, but she didn't know that Ye Xiu had already recognized this weapon. I know. I already saw it, Ye Xiu said. Oh, Chen Guo didn't say any more because Lulen Slash and his 4 party members were in front of them. Very soon, a chat bubble appeared over Lulen Slash's head along with a smiley face. Nice to meet you. This was one of the most popular ways to chat in Glory. The player used his voice to communicate, but because the character couldn't show the player's facial expression, many people liked to use emojis as a replacement. Nice to meet you too. Ye Xiu did the same and added a smiley face as well. Brother Lord Grimm, it's an honor to meet you, Lulen Slash said directly to Ye Xiu. Lulen Slash, it's an honor to meet you too, Ye Xiu replied. Liar, you just found out. Chen Guo looked down at Ye Xiu and sent a private message. It's just manners, he probably just found about me too a few days ago. Ye Xiu quickly replied. Tell him you're Ye Xiu, then it really would be an honor to meet you, Chen Guo replied. She was looking forward to see this scene. It would be very amusing to see. Before Ye Xiu could reply, Lulen Slash continued to speak. Brother, reaching the heavenly domain at level 50 is unprecedented in the history of Glory. You're amazing. I wonder which server you used to play on. Perhaps we know each other, Lulen Slash said. There was no way a new player who had just started playing on the new server would be able to finish the heavenly challenge at level 50. Even an incredibly talented player like Tang Ru, who had passion, strong mechanics, and a god personally instructing her, couldn't complete the challenge. During the past few days, many people had been curious about Lord Grimm's identity. Every famous player in the heavenly domain had been suspected. However, during the Spring Festival event, these characters were all busy in the heavenly domain, so the suspicions towards them were quickly dispelled. Then people began to recall the retired elites who were perhaps starting the game again. After greeting him, Lulen Slash began figuring out what server Ye Xiu's main account was from. Ye Xiu didn't try to hide it and answered, I used to play on the first server, but I hadn't played on it for a long time. First server. Lulen Slash and his 4 friends took a deep breath. If he really had started playing when the first server opened, then he was senior of seniors. But there was also another possibility. He had started playing later and had simply chosen to start in the first server. Brother, do you have an account in the heavenly domain? Lulen Slash asked again. He felt that someone so skilled must be an experienced player. It wasn't possible for him to not have a character in the heavenly domain, and the character must have been famous once. Not anymore, Ye Xiu replied. You give it to someone, said. You could say that, Ye Xiu replied. What's the name of the character? Thought if he knew the name of the character, he would have a much easier time figuring out his identity. Was right. After Ye Xiu told him his old character's name, it was really obvious who he was. One autumn leaf, Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo was excited. This was the moment she was waiting for. This name sounds really familiar. Do we really not know each other? Thought for a while. But right after the pause, before Ye Xiu could reply, emojis popped up above the heads of all 5 characters in the other party. Shocked, sweating, surprised, a face that turned black after being struck by lightning. Chose an unbelievable emoji, and he quickly followed one autumn leaf. You don't mean that one autumn leaf, right? Is there another one autumn leaf? Ye Xiu laughed. A moment of silence. This time, there wasn't any emoji on all 5 of the characters. They seemed to be lagging and didn't move at all. Are you saying you're Ye Xiu? Regained his composure the fastest. Yes, that's me. Ye Xiu didn't hide his identity. Crash. Everyone heard a crash but didn't know where it came from. But they could hear someone quickly speak. God Ye Xiu. He added an emoji as he talked, so everyone knew who had spoken. He was one of Slash's party members and a battle mage. As a battle mage, admiring Ye Xiu was very common and logical. After a short pause, someone finally awakened and muttered, "Is this for real?" "It's real," Ye Xiu smiled while saying. "Can you prove it?" asked. "I don't have to prove it. It's up to you whether you want to believe me or not," Ye Xiu laughed. Was startled, but he was right. He immediately followed, "Fine, if you really are God Ye Xiu, then that's even better. I've heard that you want to go back to the pro scene and make your own team." "Yes, I've thought about it," Ye Xiu said. "What a coincidence. I've been thinking about building a team for a while, and I've been preparing as well. But good players are hard to find. God, are you interested?" asked. "Then too bad for you. The God has already signed a contract with me already." How could Chen Guo bear it? Seeing a person try to dig him out from right in front of her, she jumped out and pushed Ye Xiu aside, standing in front of while speaking. "Who are you?" Hadn't paid attention to Chen Guo and forest landscape after greeting them. These 2 characters weren't famous in the heavenly domain. "I'm his boss," Chen Guo said. "What boss?" was puzzled. "You don't know what boss means." Chen Guo looked down on him. "Investor," said in a more professional way. Kind of." Chen Guo suddenly lost her confidence because all she did was provide food and shelter for Ye Xiu. She hadn't really done much else for him. Was quite famous for having money. No one knew what his background was, but there were quite a few rumors saying his family were at least millionaires. In any case, it was a lot stronger than Chen Guo's background, who only owned an internet cafe. Having support from someone like this might be better for Ye Xiu. It didn't seem quite right for Chen Guo to jump out like that. After all, she and Ye Xiu hadn't officially signed a contract or anything. Even if the guild had already been made in the 10th server, what did that mean? They were still far from starting yet. Thinking about this, Chen Guo wasn't sure. She turned around and looked at Ye Xiu, but all she saw was him laughing. Even so, he said to "Yes, she's my boss." Just this sentence made Chen Guo's confidence come back. She even straightened her back as if could see her. She said, "Did you hear that? That's what boss means. Do you still need to ask?" Thought it was a bit suspicious, but this was their first time meeting. He knew nothing about Chen Guo's background. He heard Ye Xiu admitting it himself, so it naturally wasn't a good to try and buy a player in front of her. He said, "I see. What a pity," he followed. "Then if it's convenient, how about we add each other as friends? Later, if anything comes up, we can help each other." Ye Xiu agreed and sent a friend request to Chen Guo paused for a second because Lulin Slash also sent her a friend request. Of course, Chen Guo accepted too. Lulin Slash looked around, asked, "Are you three leveling?" "Yeah," Ye Xiu replied. "Then we shouldn't bother you guys any longer. Let's keep in touch," Lulin Slash said. "Let's keep in touch." Ye Xiu nodded his head. Lulin Slash turned, carrying his sword point, and left together with the other 4 players. On the other hand, Chen Guo was in a daze. After a while, she turned around to look at Ye Xiu. "They left just like that." "What did you expect him to do?" Ye Xiu asked. "He should have pulled out an empty check and then give it to you. Fill in how much money you want and then come with me or something," Chen Guo said. "Yeah, what a pity. Why didn't I meet someone stupid like that?" Ye Xiu said. "That's not being stupid. This is your value. That's how much you're worth in glory," Chen Guo said. "Sis, he can't even confirm if I'm Ye Xiu or not," Ye Xiu said. "That's why I said he's stupid. He can't even figure that out." Chen Guo continued to look down on him. Ye Xiu didn't say any more. He could tell that Chen Guo had some sort of prejudice towards players who got power through money. She probably thought that they were useless except for being rich. She turned her camera to look in that direction. Lulin Slash's group had come fast and left fast. They had gone far away enough that their ids couldn't be seen clearly any more. The King's Avatar Volume 5 Ace Showdown.